Deep inside the ancient grounds, Ryoga finds the spirit of Sora Kashiwagi, the legendary mage fighter who once held the front lines against a monster wave and saved countless civilians. But instead of being remembered as a hero, Sora was betrayed by his own commander, Naruhito Byakugo, who deliberately used him and his men as bait, abandoned them to die, then stole all the glory for himself while every trace of Sora's sacrifice was wiped away. Ryoga digs up that buried truth and turns Sora's pain into a new offer: revenge. He promises to help him settle the score, but only if Sora agrees to become his undead servant. What follows is even crazier. Ryoga prepares a Dragonian corpse as a vessel for Sora's soul, creating a far stronger body than the one he gave him in the past timeline. Once Sora accepts, he revives inside that powerful body, keeps his mage fighter trait, and gains the ability to grow stronger over time. But why is he doing all of this? Humanity was going on with their regular day until monsters started pouring out of gates that appeared without warning, ultimately throwing the world into chaos. However, some awakened abilities thanks to the power of an unknown system, and they were known as hunters, who inevitably saved the world. By conquering these gates, the hunters grew in strength, rising from 1-star to a 7-star rank. Surprisingly, there are 7 hunters who reached the 9-star rank through the grace of the constellations and established the 7 great families that ruled the world. However, our MC, Chinen Ryoga, was an anomaly who became the first human in history to reach a 9-star rank without the grace of a constellation. This didn't sit well with the 7 great families, and the constellations decided that his existence risked bringing about the collapse of the world order. Because of this, they tracked him down to a burning city to kill him. One of the 7 great families made an appearance, resulting in a deadly battle that even cost our guy his right arm. He is sent to his knees while watching his opponent, a dude named Dimitri, sit in front of him to mock him. Apparently, Dimitri is also a 9-star rank hunter, and he is the incarnation of Odin, the Mage King. Ryoga is forced to ask him why he is trying to kill him. He wants to know if it is because he doesn't have the grace of a constellation, or if it is because he refused to serve under the 7 great families. Dimitri tells him that he can just say it is both. Dimitri mentions that the constellations want him dead, so there is little to nothing he can do about this. He mentions that it's going to be weird if someone can grow strong without the constellations. Dimitri mentions that Ryoga is an undying king who possesses power rivaling the 7 great families and the grace of the constellations all by himself, which makes him a threat. In addition to this, Dimitri says the 7 great families already have their hands full just keeping each other in check. Dimitri tells Ryoga that he has defiled the natural order because he is a necromancer, and by manipulating the dead, he has trampled upon the world's stability. He mentions that in a battle between 9 stars, the power of the constellations basically decides the victor, but because he chose a foul power, the constellations have forsaken him. Dimitri tells Ryoga that this is basically the difference between them, but Ryoga berates him, telling him that he can talk really big when he is hiding behind Odin's power. Ryoga then tells Dimitri that he has been conversing with him because he was stalling him, and he is about to show him what he can do. Ryoga then unleashes an overwhelming aura to regenerate the dead bones in the area, raising all of them as undead. Dimitri mocks him, saying he never knew he still had this much power inside him, and because of this, he is going to use his strongest magic against him too. Dimitri doesn't even move from where he is as he conjures a really powerful technique, shocking Ryoga. He realizes that Dimitri is about to use the Eye of Odin, and without a doubt, he knows that his ultimate technique doesn't stand a chance against Dimitri's power. Ryoga watches as a powerful blast of magic travels toward him, but instead of wearing a scary face, he smiles because he has something that he wants to try. Dimitri is surprised that he is laughing, and he notices that there is a weird item in Ryoga's hand. It turns out that it is an artifact that is capable of interfering with time, and it is called Kronos' Pocket. The item detects the power of a constellation, and as Ryoga raises the artifact, the blast hits it, ultimately inhabiting the artifact, fulfilling the activation requirements. This immediately activates a process of regression. Apparently, the activation requirements for Kronos' Pocket Watch are for the player to be a 9-star rank, and to inject the watch with the power of a constellation. Since Ryoga doesn't have his own constellation's power, he figures out that he will just have to borrow Dimitri's own. Dimitri watches in horror, asking Ryoga what he has done. Ryoga teases him, telling him that the power of Odin that he is proud of, he is going to be taking it. Ryoga flips him off, telling him that he is going to crush him and the 7 great families the next time that they meet. Just then, a bright light hits the field before everything goes blank. Soon afterward, Ryoga wakes up in his room, and he realizes that he is back in the house he used to live in. Ryoga is pissed that Dimitri tried to kill him for a trash reason, and he can't wait to get back at him. It turns out that the artifact is now broken because 2 cannot exist within a single dimension, and time cannot be rewound again from the current divergence point. Ryoga is glad that the artifact activated even without the power of the constellation that he contracted with. Apparently, he returned to 23 years ago, which was shortly after he left the orphanage, and it was the same day the system suddenly appeared. Just like back then, the system appears in front of Ryoga, telling him to choose a class suited to him, but the system urges him to keep his innate traits and talents in mind. As for his innate trait, it is known as a clear mind, which provides resistance to all mental attacks. As for his class, he has the option to choose between being a martial artist, a mage, or a priest. Ryoga is not surprised by this because he knows that it is only basic classes that will be available at his current level. Before regression, he actually chose the mage class, but he decided not to rush this time around. However, this time, Ryoga is determined to get even stronger and make sure he survives until the very end. He also plans to make use of the information he gained when he was a 9-star hunter. Ryoga immediately heads to the Natsuhabara hunter market, and the attendant is still pitching the materials they have to him when Ryoga cuts in, telling him that he wants the Ring of Dark Gloom. The attendant is shocked to hear this because this item is a cursed one, but Ryoga assures her that he is aware of it, and all he wants to know is how much the item costs. The attendant then tells him that they won't be responsible for any losses incurred after the purchase if he still wants to buy it. Ryoga understands why the attendant is acting this way because no one in their right mind would pay $2 million for a ring that applies every debuff imaginable. Just to buy the ring has exhausted half of his life savings. Before wearing the ring, the system tells him that equipping it will cause the wearer to be consumed by mental curses. Unknown to everyone, the ring actually has a secret because the one who overcomes the curse within the ring will be granted the knowledge and power of necromancy. Upon wearing the ring, Ryoga finds himself in a dark realm, and he is surprised that the curse he is supposed to overcome is Dimitri. Dimitri boastfully tells Ryoga that he has no chance against him without the power of a constellation because it is pretty obvious that he can't be damaged without a constellation's grace. He mocks Ryoga, telling him that he is a necromancer who has been forsaken by the constellations, and even though he returned to the past, there is no way he is going to defeat him. He fires off an energy blast from his finger toward Ryoga, but Ryoga simply activates his clear mind technique, ultimately blocking Dimitri's attack. With this, Ryoga is able to clear the trial of the Ring of Dark Gloom, and Ryoga awakens the necromancer power residing within the ring. It turns out that the only way to break the curse of the ring is not to resist, and because Ryoga knows this, he was able to become the world's first necromancer. Since he can't stand against the 7 great families without the grace of a constellation, he decides that he is just going to create a constellation that chooses him. And this is the Necromancer. Since he has cleared the trial, Ryoga now has one more option among the classes to choose from, which is the Necromancer class. This is a class that uses corpses or souls as a medium for power. As a first-class bonus, he is going to gain the Guide of Death trait. This is a trait that reduces spiritual power consumption by 20% when activating or maintaining summoning magic. Ryoga is pleased by this, and he figures out that he has just 2 skills at the moment, which are Raise the Undead, an E-rank skill, and Bone Control, which is also E-rank. As for the Raise the Undead skill, he is able to turn a corpse into an undead without a soul. The Bone Control, on the other hand, gives him what it takes to infuse magic into bones to control them freely. Thanks to the fact that he went back in time, his rank also reset back to the beginning. And even though all the necromancer knowledge in the ring is in his head, he can't use the skills yet. Ryoga figures out that he can't go against the system's level and star rank rules. By following the system, he can reach up to the 7th star, but he can't reach the 9th star, which is the realm of transcendence, by normal means. Ryoga realizes that becoming a necromancer early on isn't enough, and if he wants a chance to defeat Dimitri, he needs a guardian star. Talking about the guardian star, this is a constellation that gives protection to the hunter. Soon afterward, Ryoga packs his bags and heads to the Temple of Kronos, which is an ancient constellation that lost its light after being defeated by Zeus and the Olympian gods. Upon arriving at the temple, Ryoga whips out the broken artifact and smashes it on the altar. This immediately changes the whole scenario, and Ryoga finds himself in the realm of the fallen king of Titans, Kronos. Kronos angrily demands to know who has come to disturb his peace, but Ryoga simply offers his greetings to the dude. Kronos moves closer to Ryoga and notices the artifact in his hands. He immediately asks him if he rewinds time, and Ryoga confirms this. Kronos is impressed when he hears this, saying it is no small feat, but he wants to know why Ryoga woke him. Kronos is Poseidon's father, and he is the god who swallowed his children after hearing the prophecy of the Titans' downfall. However, he was stripped of everything by Olympus and left to be forgotten. Ryoga is confident that he will still hold his beef against Olympus. When Ryoga finally answers Kronos' question, he asks him if he wants revenge. Kronos is stunned by the question, and he asks Ryoga what he means by this. Ryoga simply answers, telling Kronos that he will be able to get his revenge if he becomes his guardian star. Kronos is pissed when he hears this, asking Ryoga if he thinks a mere human like himself can interfere in his vengeance. He asks him if he thinks someone like him can bring down Olympus. Kronos stretches his hand toward Ryoga in anger, but Ryoga quickly speaks up, revealing that he got to the 9th star without any constellation's help, and Zeus is one of the gods he wants to take revenge on. It turns out that Ryoga is looking to take down all 7 great houses, not just the Romanovs alone. Ryoga tells Kronos that if they beat the great families, Olympus would lose its hold on Earth, which would signal the start of his revenge. Kronos tells Ryoga that he is talking about revenge, but what he just mentioned is nothing but a small goal. Kronos tells him that he might be strong enough to activate his clock, but he lets him know that someone chosen by the constellations cannot walk the path of a necromancer. Kronos straight up tells Ryoga that he cannot align with something that defies providence because their natures are completely different. Ryoga agrees that this might be true for the god of time, but it is a different thing for the god of harvest. Apparently, constellations form contracts based on compatibility with one's origin and nature, not strength. Basically, Kronos is the god of harvest and time, and the scythe is a symbol of harvest, which is also the symbol of death. Harvest and death both represent cycles, death, and rebirth, which means they defy natural order. Kronos is pissed when he hears this, and he yells at Ryoga, asking him why he would dare link him with death. Kronos urges Ryoga not to get ahead of himself, but Ryoga tells him to push his pride aside. Ryoga asks him if he wants to live without power or name, while telling him that he is free to remain a stubborn old fart if he wants to continue being under Olympus forever. Ryoga tells him that he came there because he thought he would choose revenge even if it meant changing himself. Ryoga urges Kronos to join him so that they can reclaim their power to crush Olympus. Deep down, Ryoga knows that the only chance he has is for Kronos to join him, and he can't afford to lose this chance. Kronos then smiles, telling Ryoga that he hasn't forgotten about his revenge, but he would have to prove that he can become the force behind it. He asks Ryoga if he is aware that reversing his nature would bring immense pain, but he urges him to endure it, assuring him that he is going to become his guardian star if he can. Ryoga is shocked that Kronos is not even wasting time, and before Ryoga knows it, Kronos stretches his hand toward him to appoint him as his saint. Ryoga is confused by what he means by saint, but before he even gets the chance to think about it, Kronos' power rushes into him. Apparently, a saint receives divine power as a constellation's representative, and because he already has a dark element of a necromancer, Ryoga feels the two forces clashing inside him. Ryoga is strained by this, but he knows that he is going to lose his only chance to get a guardian star if he passes out. Ryoga crashes to his knees, but refuses to give up because he has to endure it. Soon afterward, Ryoga returns to Japan with a smile on his face because he managed to contract with Kronos. Kronos now resides within his mental space, and he is surprised to see just how much the world has changed. Ryoga is frustrated by just how much he talks, since Kronos presently has no followers, no power, and no divine protection. Kronos might have returned as a constellation, but he's been forced into the role of a grim reaper because of the scythe. Ryoga figures out that it is left to him to build everything from scratch so that Kronos can regain his power. Kronos admits that he is excited because it's been so long, and he urges Ryoga to spread his name far and wide since he is now a saint. Basically, a saint is the highest-ranking class in the priest line, and Ryoga cannot believe that Kronos basically turned a necromancer into a priest. Ryoga has also obtained a skill, Saint of the White Knight. This is a holy spell that takes away every penalty when using necromancer skills. Additionally, he has the Life Drain, which is a holy spell that absorbs the target's life force and can be used for physical enhancement or healing element. It is basically holy power that has been tainted with death. While priests use holy power that is granted by the gods, necromancers use spiritual energy, and this is Ryoga's first time hearing that one can use them together. Ryoga tells Kronos that using necromancer summons and saint holy skills at the same time is basically a cheat. Kronos then tells Ryoga that he is not just a guardian star because he didn't just choose him as his proxy. It then dawns on Ryoga that it was all planned from the start, and Kronos laughs out loud, saying he was once the God King. Ryoga smiles, saying he might just head to the ancient garden because it is the perfect place to test his new power. Talking about gates, they are a doorway to another dimension, and they are classified as flow, which disappears once the boss and core are defeated. There is also the fixed, which exists permanently, and as for the ancient garden, it is a fixed entry. The requirement is 1 star, and it is a medium-sized gate. Since the ancient garden is a fixed type and has a 1-star entry limit, it makes it easy for rookie hunters to enter. Upon arriving at the gate's entrance, Ryoga notices that the other hunters there are searching for a party. Even though he used to do something like this, it never ended up being a decent team. Suddenly, Ryoga is approached by a party who wants to know if he is interested in joining them. Ryoga simply turns down the dude, telling him that he is fine. The dude is embarrassed by this, and he asks Ryoga if he will be fine alone because it appears that he is a new hunter. The dude's team members tell him not to worry about Ryoga because he was the one who turned down their offer to form a party. Ryoga, on the other hand, is more than happy to be alone because he is going to test out his new skills. Upon entering the ancient garden, Ryoga notices that the environment is quiet and he knows that the usual pattern is for something to jump out at him. He hasn't finished saying this when a goblin lunges toward him from behind. Ryoga easily dodges the goblin's strike, leaving the monster open. Ryoga then grabs it by the neck, thanking it for going out of his way to get killed. Ryoga activates his inherent trait, the White Knight, thus converting spiritual power into holy power. He also adds the life drain to absorb the goblin's vitality. The goblin screams in horror as its vitality leaves its body, and Ryoga realizes that the sensation of using holy power and spiritual power is quite similar. Moments later, Ryoga is done absorbing the monster's vitality, and he drops it on the ground. Just then, Ryoga realizes that his stats have increased, and he is surprised that by draining monsters, he gets to increase his stats. From his calculations, he realizes that by killing 25 goblins, he would have gained 1 level. As usual, Kronos shows up asking Ryoga if he likes his new power, and Ryoga cannot help but admit that it is incredible. Since he now has a goblin body lying around, Ryoga decides to try out his power to raise the undead. He uses his familiar command word, and without any problem, the goblin rises up. He's informed that because the zombie's completion level is high, the goblin's stats have increased by 97.2%. The goblin is rated 1 star, and Ryoga figures out that it can help do the work of 1 person in the ancient garden. Just then, 3 more zombies emerge in the distance, and Ryoga decides to use them as test subjects. He unleashes his zombie goblin on the trio, and it grabs one of the goblins. It pushes it to the ground while biting down on its neck. One of the goblins slashes the goblin on the back, but to their surprise, this doesn't affect the undead goblin. Ryoga mocks the other zombies, telling them that their comrade is now an undead, and it is not going to die, even if they strike its vitals. Ryoga immediately grabs one of the goblins from behind and drains its vitals. Ryoga then tries his life drain on the dead goblin that the undead goblin killed. Surprisingly, it works, and Ryoga smiles because he realizes that it works on a wide range of tolerance. Since this is the case, Ryoga decides to pick up the speed. Apparently, there is a statement passed down among necromancers that as long as one manages to defeat the first one, the goal is as good as half achieved. In other words, creating the first undead is the most difficult part, and once one clears that hurdle, everything becomes much easier. In no time, Ryoga already has 4 undead goblins in his army, and he unleashes them on the other goblins that he comes across. A fierce battle ensues between them, and one of the normal goblins plunges its knife into an undead goblin, and it freaks out when it realizes that this does nothing to take it down. Kronos is not entirely pleased with the status of the battle, and he asks Ryoga if he is going to bring some dignity to the fight. But Ryoga tells him to get used to the scenario because this is how a necromancer fights. Not long after this, Ryoga is informed that he has reached the maximum limit of controllable undead, which is 20 undead. As the battle continues, 3 goblins decide that running is better than fighting. But a fiery arrow suddenly appears out of nowhere, killing the normal goblins. Ryoga immediately orders his undead goblins to halt, and he tells whoever is hiding out there to step out. The trio, who had approached him earlier in an attempt to form a party with him, steps out, and Ryoga immediately confirms that he knows them from somewhere. Apparently they are the twin shadow hunters, and Ryoga's expression changes to a cold expression when he remembers this. Apparently they were once sent to assassinate him before regression. The twin shadow hunters, Yuma and Yuka Rendo, were renowned as fraternal twin hunters. Ryoga remembers that they were a pain to deal with back then, but at the moment, they don't look strong. Ryoga is not entirely surprised because they are still 1-star hunters. However, he knows that there were only 2 back then, and the last dude appears to be a new member. Kronos tells Ryoga that it is a good option to take out future enemies ahead of time, but Ryoga is not entirely on board with this because he knows that the 2 only took an assassination request, not that they had a personal beef with him. Yuma then asks Ryoga if he is the one controlling the zombie, and Ryoga understands their confusion and shock because the Necromancer class is not yet widely known until a bit later. Ryoga answers the question, saying it is his summon, and Ryoga figures out that he needs people to act as baggage carriers for him, so the group actually fits the part. In addition, he believes that their main reason for becoming hunters is for the money. Ryoga then asks them if they are willing to work with him, and Yuma is confused by the question. Ryoga tells him that he wants to leave the Magic Stone gathering to the party, telling them that the split will be 80 to 20. He reveals that he is going to defeat the enemies so that the trio can make easy money. After hearing the offer, Yuma and his friends turn around to have a discussion about the offer. Yuka tells Yuma that they can't trust Ryoga, and the third guy agrees with her because he has never heard of a hunter who summons zombies. After minutes of serious discussion that feels like forever, Yuma finally turns around, telling Ryoga that they are going to do it. However, he wants the split to be a 50-50 split. Ryoga simply tells him that the best he can do is a 70-30 split, and if they are not interested, they can leave. Yuma has no choice but to accept, and the third guy, Haibara, tries to call Yuma back on his decision. However, Yuma tells him to stop being a wimp, revealing that Ryoga would have killed them if he wanted to. Yuma can see just how confident Ryoga is because he entered the gate without any equipment. He is pretty sure that they are going to earn money if they follow him. Soon afterward, the trio is already exhausted after working so hard in gathering mana stones because Ryoga is not even slowing down. They have managed to gather a mountain of mana stones in no time, and Yuma is left stunned because even though he knew that Ryoga wasn't ordinary, he didn't expect that it was up to that extent. While they are trying to catch their breath, Ryoga is still busy killing the goblins, waiting for the team to come pick up the mana stones. Yuma nervously suggests that they take a break, but Ryoga just continues to create more goblin corpses for them. At this point, the trio admits that Ryoga is no human. Sometime later, Ryoga decides to check out his status since they have cleared out a bunch of goblins. Ryoga is blown away when he realizes that his total stats went up by 212 points in just 3 hours of monster subjugation. Ryoga is pleased that he has the life drain because of how efficient it is, and has made his specs on par with a level 4. Ryoga then decides that it is time for him to go after the boss since his stats have gone up. Moments later, he arrives at the boss's domain where he finds it sitting on the throne with the guards surrounding him. The Goblin King taunts Ryoga, telling him that he has walked into his death, but Ryoga claps back, saying he is basically an idiot who thinks he's the king of the hill. Yuka calls Ryoga back, saying the Goblin Shaman is the boss of the south, and it might be good if they don't provoke him. The Goblin King then orders his soldiers to go after Ryoga to make him kneel before him. At the same time, Ryoga unleashes his undead goblins, and a fierce battle ensues between them. One of the undead goblins gets cut down, but Ryoga simply replaces it by raising another dead goblin. Yuma is left in shock because they are outnumbered, but Ryoga is simply turning the corpses into his summons. Just then, the Goblin King stands up and raises his bone staff while chanting some weird incantations. This then raises other bone staffs that send a wave of valor into the goblins. Their eyes turn red like maniacs, and the Goblin King tells Ryoga that his totem debuffs enemies and buffs his allies. He hasn't finished saying this when one of the undead goblins grabs one of his bone staffs and breaks it in two. Ryoga mocks him, asking him what he was saying. The undead goblins then go after the totems, destroying them to ruin whatever plan the Goblin King has. The Goblin King starts to tremble and he angrily raises his staff again in frustration. He activates a new curse, which is known as the Curse of Madness. This unleashes a strong presence that even scares Yuma and his party members. Apparently, this is a curse that increases the goblin's strength by 50%. The goblins under the king's command get the upper hand and start to decimate the undead goblins, reducing their numbers at an alarming rate. In no time, the undead goblins have been reduced to 8, and Ryoga realizes that the staff was the Goblin King's trump card from the start. The king starts making fun of Ryoga while revealing that the staff he is holding is a bone staff imbued with the grudges of goblins. Suddenly, Ryoga asks the king if the staff is made of bone, while telling him that he just handed him an easy win. Without hesitation, Ryoga activates the bone control skill and directs it toward the king's staff. The king struggles with the bone until it flies off his hand and goes to Ryoga, which immediately disrupts the Curse of Madness skill that was active. To make it worse, the goblins suffer a recoil, which decreases their stats by 30%. The Goblin King watches in horror while Ryoga smiles at him, telling him to try to use his annoying curse again. Since the king wants his staff back, Ryoga decides to give it to him, but in the worst way. He sends the staff in his way like a projectile, and it pierces the goblin's neck, causing it to die. Ryoga drains its vitality and he is surprised to see that it is giving him more stats than regular goblins because he was their king. Just before he drains all the blood from the goblin, Ryoga rushes forward to take some of the blood into a bottle, and he turns to Yuma and his crew, telling them that he is going to leave the cleanup to them. Yuma and his gang cannot believe that they have to deal with an enormous number of goblin corpses. Later on, the team steps out of the gate, and the hunters waiting outside are left in shock by how many mana stones the group came out with. Ryoga commends them for their good work and asks them if they are going to take the mana stones to the shop in Natsuhabara, but Yuma tells him that they are going to handle it themselves to make sure that they get a fair price if Ryoga is willing to leave it to them. Ryoga teases them, asking if they just expect him to trust them like that. And when he realizes that the trio is already feeling bad, he quickly tells them that he was just messing with them. Ryoga then asks how much they think it is going to be if they sell everything, and Yuma says it might average around 6 million. Ryoga pulls the Goblin King staff out of the loot, and Yuma says it is going to be worth very little. Ryoga asks him why, and Yuma reveals that there are restrictions and the options are not that enticing. Apparently, the staff can only be equipped by priests, and equipping it grants immense spiritual power. However, it erodes the wearer's mind. It adds to the spiritual power, but at the same time, only a priest can equip it. Since this is the case, Ryoga decides to take it, and he tells the group that they can deduct it from his share, but Yuma refuses. He tells Ryoga that they wouldn't have been able to obtain it without him, so they are just going to settle the accounts as if the staff never existed. Yuma asks his colleagues if they are fine with this, and they say yes. Deep down, Ryoga is pleased by this because this is exactly what he likes about the team. Ryoga excitedly walks away, suggesting that they meet the next day again. The following day, the story was the same as the day before, and even worse. Yuma crashes to the ground in exhaustion, saying he doesn't even know if he can go one full day because his bag is already full. Ryoga is not ready to push them, and he tells the group that they are free to head out first. After they are gone, Kronos asks Ryoga why he lets the group leave on purpose. Ryoga is surprised that Kronos could sense that he intentionally let them go. Ryoga mentions that he doesn't want anyone watching his next move, and he heads to the north side of the garden. Ryoga soon comes across a bunch of frog monsters, and a fierce battle ensues between his undead goblins and the frogs. However, the frogmen appear to be more sturdy than the goblins as they reduce the goblins' numbers. Ryoga is not entirely surprised by this because the frogmen have higher stats. Ryoga then unleashes the bone staff while activating a skill, Oil Shower. This is a skill that decreases the power of physical penetration damage when attached. The bone sticks into the frogman's body and it angrily releases poisonous liquid from its mouth. Ryoga manages to dodge the strike before letting the staff loose like a missile. However, Ryoga soon realizes that consumption is too high, since he is moving the staff and creating undead at the same time. Nonetheless, Ryoga keeps going as he raises dead frogmen under his wings. Not long after this, Ryoga is informed by the system that he has leveled up to level 6. Ryoga smiles because he believes that at this rate he will be back to his pre-regression state in no time, and he can't wait to go after Dimitri. Moments later, Ryoga heads to what appears to be a ruin with a frogman's heart in his hands. Kronos asks him what he intends to do with this, and Ryoga just tells him to keep quiet because he would like to concentrate. He mentions that something spectacular is going to happen by the time he drops the blood of a goblin shaman onto a frogman's heart. The moment he does, it gives off a weird aura, and Ryoga reveals that he can use this to reach the hidden area that wouldn't be discovered for several years. The system then tells him that he has uncovered the hidden secret of the ancient garden, and he is being transported to the ancient trial grounds. Moments later, Ryoga finds himself in an arena, and the system informs him that he has entered the ancient trial grounds. Apparently, he found this before the regression, and because it was a 2-star rank back then, he couldn't enter. Suddenly, a beam of light appears in front of him, and a monster gradually emerges from it. The system informs him that the trial has a participant limit of 1 person, and he is expected to prove his courage and potential in the trial grounds. Surprisingly, the monster he is going to be fighting is a Dragonian, and he is expected to survive for 10 minutes to be awarded a reward. In the past, it was the Constellations that commissioned the Dragon Legion to create the ancient trial grounds in an attempt to select capable hunters. When Kronos sees the monster Ryoga is about to fight, he teases him, telling him that he is not even going to last 10 seconds. Kronos smiles, saying it is time for him to start looking for a new saint, but deep down, Ryoga knows that it won't come to that. Even though his opponent is from the dragon race, it has been weakened to match a 1-star. At the same time, Ryoga doesn't think it is going to be a walk in the park. Just as the Dragonian is about to attack, Ryoga tells it to wait because he wants to run a quick modification on his undead frogmen. Ryoga is banking on the fact that bad guys usually wait while the main character transforms. Ryoga then changes the poison constitution of the frogmen from corpse poison to plague blood. This ultimately transforms them into plague zombies, and Kronos is surprised that the dude is undergoing an impromptu modification. Ryoga boasts about how he was a 9-star necromancer before he regressed, and he tells the Dragonian that it can finally attack him because he is done. The Dragonian dashes toward him, but the frogmen meet it halfway. They lunge toward it and grab it on every corner of its body while biting on it. By doing this, they release poison acid into its body, and the Dragonian doesn't waste time before throwing off the frogmen. However, they have dumped a ton of poison into its system, and Ryoga reveals that he actually converted all the strength stats of the frogmen, which had doubled, into poison. Even though their strength and agility have dropped really badly, their poison has become really potent. Just then, the Dragonian slams its foot on the ground, releasing a massive shockwave that sends the frogmen crashing to the ground. Ryoga is impressed that Dragonian is able to withstand the acid poison, and he quickly activates the staff's defense as the Dragonian charges toward him. The Dragonian swings at him, but the shield around his body blocks the attack. However, Ryoga can feel just how strong the Dragonian is, even though its strength has been halved thanks to the poison. The Dragonian prepares for another attack, and this time, Ryoga activates the bone control skill that pierces the monster's hand. It screams in pain, forcing it to come to a halt, while the frogmen leap toward it. The frogmen start to bite down on its body, releasing a massive dose of poison into its bloodstream. Even though it is already weak, the Dragonian still tries to fight off the frogmen. Ryoga is impressed by his final struggles, but he knows that it has reached the end of the line already. Just as predicted, the Dragonian crashes to its knees, and Ryoga pulls out the bone staff that was lodged in its hand. With the Dragonian unable to move, Ryoga walks up to it and starts to drain its vitality. In the end, Ryoga was able to clear the ancient grounds, and Kronos was impressed that Ryoga could overwhelm a Dragonian with a crude swarm of undead. Ryoga then reminds Kronos that he already said he wasn't going to die. Just then the system tells him that the Crest of Endurance has been engraved. This is an item that reduces delay time upon taking damage by 40%, increases mana alignment speed by 20%, reduces stagger when taking damage while improving concentration, and, unlike Constellation Blessings or support magic, it is a permanent buff. It is basically a supreme grade crest, and Ryoga smiles because he just got something really nice. At the same time, he is interested in the Dragonian corpse, and Kronos asks him what he plans to do with the monster's corpse. Ryoga stores the corpse, saying he is not going to waste it because he plans to make an undead that is even stronger. However, to do this, he is going to need alchemy tools, and he wonders if the alchemy guy he knew around that time has opened his workshop yet. After leaving the dungeon, he heads to the Saitama Prefecture, and he is surprised that nothing has changed, even from before his regression. Upon arriving at the front of the building, a huge explosion hits from inside the workshop. But Ryoga is not surprised because he already knows the kind of person he is coming to meet. The dude then opens the workshop door to let air in, and Ryoga smiles at him, telling him that he has finally found him. Apparently, this alchemist is the one who established the world's first formula for mass-produced mid-grade potions. He also made a name for himself as Japan's #1 alchemist. His name is Shintani Renya, and he is known as the Great Alchemist. Ryoga walks up to the dude and introduces himself, while asking if he has a minute to spare. Renya replies that he doesn't mind, but he would like to know who Ryoga is because he is currently in front of his personal laboratory. Ryoga tells him that he is there because he would like to use his alchemy equipment, and this sends some level of repulsion down his body. Ryoga tells the dude not to be entirely dissatisfied because he is simply borrowing them, which would end in a win-win situation. Ryoga tells Renya that he is currently working on mid-grade health potions, and Renya is shocked when he hears this, asking Ryoga how he knows about it. Ryoga simply walks into his lab telling him that he is going to help him to stabilize a potion that is unstable. Moments later, Ryoga delivers his promise, and Renya is totally blown away by this. Ryoga understands why he is acting so surprised, and this is because Renya would only discover this years later. Ryoga then suggests that he give it a try, and he cuts himself with a blade. Ryoga then pours the potion on it, and to Renya's surprise, the wound immediately heals like it was never there. Renya is blown away, and he tries to collect the potion from Ryoga, but Ryoga refuses. Seeing how desperate he is, Ryoga asks him if he is curious about the formula. Renya admits that he is, and Ryoga suggests that he lend him his strength for a while if he wants to get the formula. Ryoga assures him that he is going to teach him potion recipes and a lot of other things if he agrees to work with him, but he lets him know that the royalties will be a 60-40 split. Deep down, Ryoga knows that there is no way he is going to resist such a delicious offer. Once they are in agreement, Ryoga brings out the Dragonian's corpse and Renya asks him what it is. He simply replies that he is a necromancer and he is planning on processing the Dragonian's body into a special corpse. Ryoga realizes that Renya is curious about the whole thing, and he suggests that Renya come and help him. Renya disagrees, saying they haven't signed a contract yet, so he sees no reason why he should help him. Renya tells Ryoga that he is only allowing him to use the space while he thinks over the whole thing. Kronos is surprised that Renya is so on edge, and Ryoga lets him know that it is understandable because of what he went through. Apparently, he produced great results as a researcher for the country's largest corporation, Daisei, but his boss took all the credit for it. In the end, he was forced to resign, and this is basically why he doesn't trust people. Kronos is disappointed to hear this, and he talks about how the human world is nothing but betrayal and obsession, but Ryoga reminds him that he and the other gods are not that different. Ryoga then calls on Renya, saying he is aware that he is hesitant to sign because he doesn't really know what he is capable of. Since this is the case, he suggests that he help him out with what he is doing so he can see for himself. Renya reluctantly agrees, and Ryoga hands him a tool while telling him the amount of F-rank stones he should melt and the ratio. In no time, Renya was done with it, and this impressed Ryoga, who immediately concluded that Renya is the right man for the job. Meanwhile, Renya is left wondering what Ryoga is doing with the corpse. Apparently, everything he has been doing is to enhance the undead's performance, which requires layering of formulas and curses over and over. After 3 days of hard work, they are finally done with the panels. While Renya is already exhausted, Ryoga remains active like he hasn't even done anything stressful. Renya is left wondering what type of person Ryoga is because he was able to restart a corpse's heart using mana. Even though Ryoga's methods are insane, he has no choice but to admit that he has the skills. Impressed, Renya tells Ryoga that he is going to accept his original proposal, and Ryoga asks him if he is sure about this. Renya mentions that it would have taken him at least 2 years to finish a mid-tier healing potion if not for Ryoga's expertise. Since he is interested in the progress of his research, he tells Ryoga that he is interested in the deal. Ryoga is pleased to hear this, and he tells Renya that he is looking forward to working with him as his exclusive alchemist, but deep down, he sees him as his servant. Since Ryoga is done with the first phase, he realizes that the next thing is to find a soul to serve as the Eldritch Dragon's core. Ryoga then steps out of the lab, and he calls Yuma, telling him that he has seen the money. He commends him, saying he wasn't expecting him to send every last cent, while asking him if he is up for another gig. Not long after this, the team, which is now known as the Rookies, meet up with Ryoga near the border. Yuma asks him why he came to such a dangerous place, because ever since the northern gate broke, the place has supposedly been crawling with monsters. Ryoga smiles, saying he is there to pay his respects to an old acquaintance, and moments later they run into a 2-star orc. The team panics when they see this, as they try to warn Ryoga about the danger, but Ryoga cannot believe that the team is still doubting his strength. He then decides that he is going to use the opportunity to test the processed bones. By using bone control, he sends the bone after the orc, and the orc also throws his spear at Ryoga. However, it turns out to be a bad matchup for the orc as Ryoga easily changes the trajectory of the bone. It pierces the orc's body, and he screams out in pain, but Ryoga still commends him, telling him that he is tougher than he looks because he was actually aiming for his heart. The orc grabs the bone and pulls it out, lunging toward Ryoga, but the rookies step in. Yuma blocks the orc's path with his shield, while an explosion hits the orc. Ryoga then decides to send 3 bones toward the orc, and he fails to block everything, resulting in his fatal death. Yuma is left in shock because he can't believe that Ryoga just defeated a 2-star orc. Ryoga urges the team to look alive because the real work is about to begin. Yuma is entirely confused about the whole thing, reminding Ryoga that he said he is there to pay his last respects. Ryoga raises the orc he just killed as an undead, and he assures Yuma that he hasn't forgotten his mission because the person he is after is in the orc village. Ryoga adds that they are going to make some cool cash, and this is enough to get the attention of the team. Ryoga continues taking down orcs, and in no time, he reaches level 13. Not long after this, the system informs him that he has exceeded the limit for stats that can be absorbed from a single race and can no longer absorb stats from the orc race. Ryoga is not surprised because he wasn't expecting the whole thing to be infinite. Ryoga then suggests that they end their hunt for the day, and just before he even suggests that they set up camp, Yuma and the others have started preparing food. Ryoga teases them, saying they came prepared, and Yuma reminds him that it is already their 3rd day on the hunt. That night, Ryoga tells the team that they will be heading to the orc settlement the next day because his stats have gone up already. Before the trio sleeps, Ryoga puts orcs on guard duty so that they can have a good rest. Ryoga, on the other hand, sits outside the camp to assess the current situation. Since his level has gone up a bit, he figures out that it is time for him to read the newly unlocked knowledge. He then assesses the Library of Knowledge, where he can view the knowledge left behind by the previous Lord of Death. There is a particular book that he would like to obtain the knowledge from, but the system tells him that he doesn't have permission until he meets the requirement, which is level 45 or higher. Ryoga then picks up the 1-star books in the library to start reading them, even though he has already reached 9 stars in his previous life. Without complaints, Ryoga sits down to diligently read the books, and after studying for so long, he is informed that he has acquired a new skill. The following morning, Haibara wakes up to an orc staring down at him, and he screams out in fear. Ryoga teases him, asking him why he is still overreacting when he has been seeing this every day. Yuma then tells Ryoga that the orc actually looks different from the day before. Apparently there is an armor bone around it, and it has even gotten bigger. Ryoga confirms this, revealing that he modified the orcs a little bit. Thanks to the modification, they are now called armored zombies with superhuman strength and endurance. Ryoga had obtained 2 skills, which is the bone armor that allows bones to be transformed into armor to be worn, while the second is squirming flesh. This allows manipulation of flesh attached to a corpse, and convinced that he is prepared, Ryoga tells the team that it is time for them to head to the orc settlement. After a long day's journey, they finally arrive at the orc village, and the orcs immediately prepare for battle the moment they notice that enemies are approaching their dearest village. The first set of orcs is easily taken down by Ryoga, using the bone control skill as he cuts through them with bone. Just then, the orc leader shows up with a battle axe to motivate his team. He gives his orders, and the orc archers fire arrows at the rookies, but Yuma's defense is able to block out the attacks. Yuka returns the favor by firing fiery arrows at them, piercing their skin and delaying their advancement. Kronos is impressed by this, and he tells Ryoga that she is quite useful. Moments later, the orcs finally get the chance to charge toward Ryoga and his team, and Ryoga unleashes his own army of undead orcs. The undead army gains an overwhelming advantage over the regular orcs, and Ryoga is glad that he read the books because he has gained good knowledge from them. As the battle progresses, the orcs start to fear, but Ryoga lets them know that they have not even seen anything yet. The undead orc army charges at the regular orcs, tearing into their bodies like butter. Whenever the regular orcs try to fight back, their attacks are blocked by the bone armor around the undead orcs. Whenever the armor is damaged and the durability is reduced, Ryoga simply uses his skill to repair the durability. He also activates the squirming flesh skill, and pieces of flesh attached to the orcs. This causes their formation to be ruined, and Yuma is left stunned because he realizes that Ryoga is not just strong, but he is in a different league of his own. Seeing how the orcs are being dominated, the orc leader activates Berserk mode, ultimately evolving the orcs into a special variant. Ryoga was already expecting this, and it doesn't really surprise him. The leader of the squad of orcs then charges toward Ryoga, but Ryoga simply meets him halfway with enough bones to turn his body into a basket. The orc crashes to his knees and he tries to pull out the bone in his chest, but Ryoga tells him that there is no way he is going to allow something like that. Ryoga increases the intensity of the bone, consuming even more life from the orc as it screams in agony. While doing this, Ryoga is burning through his mana and he realizes that controlling 6 bones at a time is no child's play. He figures out that he has no choice, because the orc will regain mobility if one of the bones in him is dislodged. Ryoga figures out that the way out is to pierce the orc's heart in a single blow. Ryoga increases the intensity of the bone effect, draining his mana down to 42%, but just then, the orc finally crashes to the ground. Exhausted, Ryoga wastes no time, using the mana drain on the orc. He is able to recover the mana he has lost, and the moment the other orcs see this, they turn around in an attempt to run away. However, Ryoga is not about to just let them escape as he activates the flesh writhing skill. The flesh that has already attached to their body immediately kicks into action, biting down into their bodies and causing them to fall to the ground. This gives the orc undead army a chance to pounce on them and finish them off. After the battle, green mana stones start emerging from the orcs' bodies, and Yuma talks about how curious he is to know how much the stones will be worth. Ryoga then reveals that the real price is not the mana stones, but the blood axe that the leader was wielding. This is an A-rank weapon that has high durability. It was forged from refined blood, and it is imbued with sorcery that amplifies the wielder's power. Its strength increases the more blood it absorbs. Ryoga smiles as he holds the axe, saying clearing the orc village was really worth it. Ryoga then gives Yuma the axe, telling him that he is leaving it to him. Yuma assures him that they are going to make sure they gather all the mana stones so he can just get some rest. Instead of resting, Ryoga makes his way to what appears to be an ugly tree. He speaks to the tree, telling it to come out so that they can have a chat, but he gets no response. Ryoga is not about to take no for an answer, and he hits the tree with a bone so hard that the tree comes to life, asking Ryoga what it wants. The tree transforms into a humanoid form, and Ryoga greets the dude, who is known as Sora Kashiwagi, the mage fighter. A dark aura surrounds the dude, and he asks Ryoga how he knows his name. Ryoga replies that there is no way he is not going to know his name because he is the hero who held the front lines 35 years back to stop the monster wave from pushing south. It turns out that he actually turned him into an undead before the regression. Apparently, Japan was able to survive thanks to heroes like Sora. He was a powerhouse who made a name for himself on the front lines during the early days of the Great Cataclysm. It turns out that he possesses the talent for both martial arts and magic, which earned him the nickname Mage Fighter. After hearing the praises that Ryoga heaped on him, Sora assumed that his sacrifice was not in vain. Ryoga then tells him that not everyone's name was remembered, and Sora asks him what this means. Ryoga then asks him if he remembers Naruhito Byakugo, who was the submaster of the Aragiri Guild. In a flashback scene, Sora was seen on the front lines with his men, and when he realized just how bad the situation was, he requested backup. His commanding officer was Naruhito, and Sora let him know that there were still civilians in the area. However, his boss lets him know that assistance cannot be sent to his location, leaving Sora and his team stranded. This was when it dawned on him that they planned to use them as bait from the very beginning. Naruhito confirms this with no remorse, telling Sora that it was thanks to him that the main force was able to slip through the northern gate without any issue. Sora also asked Naruhito if he intentionally sent them there knowing that they won't abandon civilians, and Naruhito nonchalantly told him not to be gloomy about the whole situation. Sora angrily smashes the radio, and he tells his team members to protect the civilians instead of abandoning them. In the face of death, Sora and his men carried out their duties, but ended up dying. Ryoga then lets him know that Naruhito ended up becoming a hero, while every record related to Sora was erased. Ryoga casually tells him how tragic it is that he was the one who died, but someone else walked away with his glory. Ryoga teases him, saying he wouldn't have been able to rest in peace if he were the one. Ryoga's words get to Sora so hard that he yells at him in anger, telling him to get straight to the point. Ryoga then boldly tells Sora that he will help him get his revenge if he makes a contract with him to become an undead. Ryoga brings out the Dragonian's body, telling Sora that he has already prepared a vessel for his soul. Sora lets Ryoga know that he had never considered revenge in his current state, but if he is going to do what Ryoga wants, he has a condition. He tells Ryoga that he is free to use him in whatever way he deems fit, but he doesn't want anything to do with harming the innocent. Ryoga remembers the dude giving him the exact same condition before he regressed, which shows that he hasn't changed. This much is expected from a hero, and Ryoga promises the dude that he will do as he said. With the two in agreement, Sora enters the Dragonian's body to become Ryoga's undead. Apparently, before his regression, he possessed Sora's soul with a skeleton knight, and he managed to evolve him into a Hell Knight, but he had always thought of what would happen if he had given Sora a stronger body from the start. Kronos is pleased with Ryoga's insight, as he could see that he strengthened the Dragonian's body in preparation for something like this. Ryoga then reads a special piece of information on the screen, telling him that the undead he just possessed can grow. As the soul grows, it will be able to draw out even more power from the corpse. Ryoga is blown away by this, because this is a trait Sora didn't have when he put him in the Skeleton Knight. In addition to this, he carried along the Mage Fighter trait, and Ryoga asks Sora how he feels in the new body. Sora admits that it is kind of good, but tells Ryoga that it is inferior to when he was alive. At the same time, Ryoga gets a notification that the dragon is incomplete, leaving Ryoga to think of what he did that rendered it incomplete. Nonetheless, he believes that it is a much better start than the last time. Ryoga then calls him a minion, telling him that it is time for them to leave. This gets to Sora, and he refuses to go because he doesn't like the idea of being called a minion. Ryoga asks him if he should call him by his old name, but he refuses, saying he has thrown it away already. Ryoga cannot believe just how annoying the dude is, and he doesn't remember him being like that. Sora starts thinking of a name that will intimidate enemies just by hearing it, but he finds it hard to pick something out. Ryoga then makes a few suggestions from Fafnir to Tiamat, but Sora rejects them all. Minutes later, they are still arguing over what name he should be called, and Ryoga just thinks of punching him in the face. After so much back and forth, he finally settles for Fafnir. As they are about to leave, Fafnir stops Ryoga, saying he is completely bare and has to put something on. He rushes over to the shack beside them and drags off a piece of clothing, which he ties around his lower body. Fafnir finally decides that it is time to leave, and Ryoga is frustrated about just how annoying he is. Later on, they make their way to Renya's laboratory, and he is shocked that Ryoga has managed to get the corpse moving. Renya is so blown away by this that he starts swarming around Fafnir, asking to study him. Fafnir asks Ryoga if he punches the dude in the face because he is really creeping him out, but Ryoga says no, saying Renya is their partner. Yuma and the others also show up, telling Ryoga that they are going to head out to Tokyo to sort out the items that they got, and Ryoga gives them the go-ahead. After they are gone, Ryoga whips out the orc leader because he has plans for him too. Renya asks him what he is about to make, and Ryoga asks if he is curious, but Renya says no, saying his arm almost fell off the last time just from mixing herbs. Before he knows it, he is already mixing herbs again because he simply can't keep his curiosity in check. In addition, he knows that Ryoga is always exceeding his expectations, so there is no way he is not going to be curious. Ryoga then begins work on the corpse, peeling off the flesh on the body, and after he is done, Renya gives him the extract he just finished producing. He then pours the extract on the skeleton to strengthen it, and after he is done, the skeleton gains undead status with 2 shields. Ryoga figures out that the best thing he can do is to make the skeleton his bodyguard. Ryoga tells the skeleton that whenever he is using the life drain, he will be the one to guard him. Renya is not entirely impressed that they have to work with a skeleton, and Ryoga lets him know that bones have huge advantages. He says that they are light and they don't even rot without preparation. Unlike zombies, which have a time limit, the skeleton stays as it is, as long as it continues to be supplied with spiritual power. Since Life Drain is a close-range skill, he has always needed a bodyguard when activating. Renya is totally blown away by the fact that Ryoga didn't just make a skeleton, but even factored in its maintenance. Ryoga then decides to take a walk, and he tells Renya to keep an eye on the skeleton. Renya freaks out, asking Ryoga where he is going that late in the day, and he replies that he is heading to the Pantheon. Apparently his level went up, and he has been contacted to come and receive a holy spell. Renya freaks out when he hears this because he never knew Ryoga was a freaking priest. Ryoga tells the dude that he is a devout believer, but Renya disagrees, saying there is no way this is possible even if the world flipped upside down. Ryoga cannot even argue with him, and he simply changes the topic, asking him if he has completed the patent registration for the mid-grade heal potion. Renya tells him that it will be ready very soon, and Ryoga commends him, saying he works really fast. Renya mentions that competition will only grow with time, so he doesn't intend to fall behind. However, the real problem is publicity because the next exhibition isn't until the following year. Ryoga then tells him to give him some samples, promising to promote them if the chance comes up. Renya appreciates this, and he gives Ryoga a sample that he needs, and Ryoga assures him that money will flow in like a river if the sample works out. Ryoga is already imagining how rich he is going to be when this happens, and just the thought of money makes him look really maniac, leaving Renya to doubt the fact that the dude is really a priest. After this, Ryoga decides that it is time to head to the Pantheon. This actually emerged after the Great Cataclysm, and most who gather there come to receive holy incantations and blessings from constellations. There are even constellations that demand offerings from their followers, and as he reaches the entrance to the ground floor, Ryoga is not impressed because he can't even sense any relic that is radiating divinity. At the same time, he doesn't expect this since they wouldn't just leave something valuable lying around. Moments later, Ryoga is already panting from the number of stairs he has climbed. Ryoga makes a joke about how far the stairs are, and Kronos tells him how sharp his tongue is. Ryoga doesn't really care because he doesn't think he is going to be punished for saying something like that. Ryoga then asks Kronos how far the top is, and he tells him that he is basically halfway there. Ryoga tells Kronos that he is not going to take it lightly if it ends up being something that is not worth it. Upon arriving at the top level, the other constellations there start to show disgust and displeasure toward Ryoga. After they are done messing with Ryoga, Kronos decides that it is his turn, and he registers himself in the Pantheon. After he is done with this, Ryoga is informed that he has acquired the holy incantations, which are the Unholy Blessing and State of Retribution. The Unholy Blessing enhances negative energy and boosts target's stats. The Stake of Retribution, on the other hand, has a bunch of boring stuff about receiving damage. Kronos teases Ryoga, telling him that he graciously gave him the skills, and Ryoga admits that they are impressive. Kronos laughs out loud, but just then, the system informs Ryoga that Kronos doesn't have sufficient divine status because he lacks achievements and recognition. His laugh suddenly goes cold when he sees this, and Ryoga cannot help but make fun of him for acting all high and mighty before. However, he is pleased that he has grown stronger. Moments later, Ryoga steps out of the Pantheon only to be challenged by a big dude who asks him why he is coming out of the Pantheon. The dude, Satake Shigeru, appears to know who Ryoga is. Ryoga asks him who he is, and he reminds Ryoga that he used to look after him at the orphanage, and after revealing his name, Ryoga remembers him as the trash who used to extort people. Ryoga tells the dude not to talk to him like they are close buddies because he remembers how he treated him back then. It turns out that a dude once ratted Satake out to the director, and while he was trying to beat the dude, Ryoga shows up and punches him in the face. Now in the present, Ryoga teases him, asking him if his broken nose has healed. Satake groans in frustration, but before he loses his temper, he controls himself, saying he is now a different person. Satake shows Ryoga the tag on his chest, revealing that he has now joined the Aragiri Guild. Satake tells Ryoga that he is nothing but a bottom-tier hunter because he just came out of the Pantheon. He also urges him not to think things will go down the way they did the last time. Ryoga, on the other hand, teases him, telling him that he doesn't look different from how he remembers him. This pisses Satake off so bad that he throws a punch at Ryoga, but someone catches his arm, telling him that they are in the middle of the city. This person is the strike team leader of the Aragiri Guild, Jomon Ragu. Satake tries to tell his boss how arrogant Ryoga is, and Jomon suggests that they take the fight elsewhere so that they can settle everything properly. Deep down, Jomon is looking to punish Ryoga for picking a fight with the Aragiri Guild when he knows who they are. Satake laughs at the idea that Jomon is suggesting that they settle their beef with fists, saying Ryoga just became a hunter. However, Ryoga is not about to shy away from a fight, and he tells Satake that he is up for it. Satake is shocked to hear this, and Ryoga uses the opportunity to dunk on him again, asking him if he is already getting cold feet. This is enough to push Satake to say there is no backing out. Moments later, they arrive at the Aragiri Guild Training Center. The two step into the arena, and Ryoga summons Fafnir, telling Satake that he will be the one to fight, since he is a priest. Satake is not entirely worried as he believes that Ryoga has a trash ability. In addition, he has a necklace and rings that boost his own stats too. After putting everything into the right state, the match is declared open. Satake hasn't even made any move when he is already teasing Ryoga, asking him if he is scared. Ryoga cannot believe just how loudmouthed Satake is, and Fafnir is also hyped that he ran into Aragiri very early on. He decides that he is going to check out how strong his body is, while saying he has no intention of holding back. However, Ryoga tells him not to finish the fight in one hit because there is something he would like to test. Fafnir agrees to this even though it is going to be pretty difficult. Satake then makes the first move, lunging towards Fafnir with the spear, but Fafnir easily raises his leg to dodge the attack. Satake unleashes another spear technique, but Fafnir still dodges this. Satake goes on the attack again with his insane agility. Jomon is impressed with Satake's movements, believing that the fight will end earlier than expected. Just then, Fafnir casually grabs Satake's spear, teasing him, telling him that such a useless attack will not work on him. Satake struggles, but couldn't drag the spear away from Fafnir, and Fafnir scolds Satake, telling him that he is attacking without even thinking of his next move. Fafnir lets him know that he would have been dead if it were real combat. Fafnir prepares to punch the dude in the face, but suddenly remembers that he was supposed to hold back. Instead of punching him, he slaps him across the face really hard, causing Satake to lose his breath. He falls to his knees to try to catch his breath while trying so hard not to scream like a baby. Ryoga teases him, saying he has grown a bit because he is not screaming for minutes like before. Satake is pissed about how Ryoga is messing with him, and he dashes toward Fafnir with his spear, but Fafnir easily pins his spear to the ground, shattering the ground. He mocks Satake, telling him that his opponent will simply catch on if he uses the same technique twice. Fafnir then proceeds to break his knee, and Satake screams out in severe pain. Fafnir mocks him, telling him that the battle is over. Just as he is about to land the finishing blow, Jomon stops the match. He looks really pissed, and Ryoga is surprised that he stepped in to stop it earlier than he expected. Jomon then walks over to check on Satake's knee while revealing that he would have to call a priest. Ryoga reminds Jomon that a priest is standing right behind them, but Jomon argues that a one-star healing can't fix a broken bone. Ryoga assures Jomon that he knows it, and Jomon demands to know how he plans to heal the broken bone. Ryoga reveals his plan to use a mid-grade potion, and he brings out the sample that Renya gave him. Satake is skeptical because mid-grade potions cost millions. Ryoga uses the opportunity to market the potion, saying that there is mass production of mid-grade potions. Satake says he hasn't, while trying to say he won't receive help from the person who defeated him. Ryoga urges the dude to just accept it like that because he is only trying to help. Ryoga was already thinking of how he was going to promote the potion, and he just found the perfect test subject. Ryoga then pours the potion on the wound, and to Jomon's disbelief, the wound heals completely. Jomon immediately starts thinking of how he is going to get the potion. Jomon asks Ryoga where he bought the potion from, and deep down, Ryoga is pleased that he already took the bait. Ryoga tells Jomon that he is pretty sure that he is around 3 stars, since he is a captain in the guild, and Jomon confirms this. Ryoga then makes him a wild offer, telling him to fight him, assuring him that he is going to tell him where he got the potion from if he does. Jomon is convinced because Ryoga is willing to tell him regardless of the match result. Ryoga tells the dude that this is what he wants because the last fight was too short. Moments later, the match begins, and Jomon dashes toward Fafnir at blinding speed, delivering fast-paced attacks to his body. Jomon is able to exploit Fafnir's huge body, landing blow after blow. Fafnir screams out in frustration, but can't even get to Jomon. Ryoga is not entirely surprised because he was expecting Jomon to use the fast attack style of Kashiwagi, which is a bad matchup for a Dragonian. This is exactly why he used the potion as a bait to provoke the dude, because if Fafnir encounters an opponent he can't fight properly, he will feel it. Instead of being frustrated, Fafnir is determined to get used to this style of fighting with his sluggish body. Ryoga commends his determination, saying this is why he is his right-hand man. As soon as Ryoga bestows the impure blessings, Fafnir's strength instantly increases by 20%, leaving Ryoga surprised. Afterwards, he also pours the same impure blessings on Jomon, causing his stats to decrease by 10%, which instantly makes him sluggish. The level of Ryoga's skills leaves Jomon wondering if he's truly just a one-star hunter. Meanwhile, Kronos is feeling fly as he fishes for compliments from Ryoga regarding the power he bestowed on him. Ryoga admits that the power isn't bad for a god from the bottom constellation. Infuriated by the comment, Kronos scolds him while Ryoga holds him back like a kid throwing a tantrum. Ryoga then activates the Retribution Wedge on Fafnir to gather Retribution points for every time Fafnir takes damage. These accumulated points, when released, increase the damage dealt to the enemy. Now that Fafnir is equipped with Impure Blessings and the Retribution Wedge, Ryoga tells him to go crazy without holding back. Fafnir is excited to receive this order as he struts forward in confidence to face his opponent. A few seconds later, they begin fighting, and Jomon relentlessly attacks Fafnir without letting him catch his breath. However, all these hits continue to accumulate Retribution points for Ryoga. Despite the debuff from the Impure Blessings, Jomon is able to adjust to the stat reduction since he's a 3-star hunter from Aragiri. But what he can't seem to wrap his head around is how a measly 1-star lizard is taking his attack head-on without falling back. While Fafnir is taking several hits, his defense rate begins to drop rapidly due to the continuous damage. As he finally prepares to make a move, Fafnir decides to abandon the speed-focused style he had relied on when he was human. He continues to charge forward without any concern for his own safety because he knows that injuries will not slow him down, as his new body is basically dead. Armed with this knowledge, Fafnir stops trying to evade the attacks altogether. Instead, he endures every blow and presses forward, determined to close the distance between himself and Jomon. His goal is to force the battle into close combat, where he can finally strike back. When he finally closes the distance, Fafnir launches a counterattack. Using the Kinetic Combat Arts Form 7, he unleashes a rapid barrage of punches, striking Jomon 10 times in swift succession. Due to this attack, Jomon's HP is instantly depleted by half, convincing him that there's no way Fafnir is a 1-star summon. He notes that taking another insane attack like that will completely drain him, but Jamon refuses to back down. Determined to prove his worth as a 3-star hunter from Aragiri, Jamon swiftly charges forward again. Believing he has the upper hand because of his speed, he plans to aim for Ryoga since summoners usually have the lowest combat abilities. He swiftly races past Fafnir and charges straight towards Ryoga to take out the root cause of the problem. Using the 12th form of the Zaful sword style, Jomon tries to pierce him with a blade, but Ryoga remains unfazed as if he had been expecting this move all along. With the snap of his finger, Ryoga unleashes the Retribution Wedge, knocking him back with a powerful shockwave. This shockwave was generated by releasing the accumulated Retribution points gathered when Jomon was attacking Fafnir. The shockwave completely depleted the rest of his HP, knocking him out cold, instantly ending the duel. A few hours later, Jomon reported the incident to his boss, Aragiri's number 2, a 7-star hunter named Naruhito Byakugo. After hearing about the mid-grade potions being advertised by Ryoga, Naruhito asks Jomon if he has properly verified their effectiveness. Jomon reassures him that the potions are just as effective as the ones found in gates. He also tells Naruhito that he personally witnessed the potions heal a fractured bone instantly. Afterwards, Jomon apologizes to Naruhito for tarnishing the name of Aragiri by losing to a measly 1-star hunter. Naruhito is irritated to hear this and wonders why Jomon would think their reputation can be tarnished by an insignificant person like him. He then angrily points out that the Aragiri name can never be disgraced by a puny perpetual 3-star hunter. Terrified, Jomon hurriedly apologizes for being presumptuous and letting the guild's name get to his head. Once Jomon is dismissed, Naruhito instructs his secretary to demote him from a captain to a regular member. He also orders her to find the source of the mid-grade potions and investigate Ryoga as well. Naruhito feels there's something shady about Ryoga because it's impossible for a 1-star to defeat a 3-star hunter. Since Ryoga is supposed to be a priest, Naruhito suspects he must have obtained a divine beast-class summon to give him the upper hand. At the same time, Ryoga's ears itch as he figures that the information about the potions must have reached the higher-ups of Aragiri. He's excited to see how they react to the news of a mass-produced mid-grade potion. Just then, Fafnir's voice snaps him back to reality, questioning why Ryoga is making him read a spear mastery book. Ryoga explains that he wants to learn from him, and since Fafnir is a mage fighter, he should be an expert at close combat and using weapons. Although Fafnir complains about Ryoga making him do troublesome things, he still goes ahead to study the skill book. Meanwhile, Ryoga goes on to explain that he needs the skill to protect himself because, just like Jomon, others will aim for him as the summoner. Fafnir jokes that it's only natural for people to target the weakest-looking dude in the room. He immediately bursts into laughter, mocking Ryoga for looking like soggy noodles. Still cackling uncontrollably, Fafnir advises him to drink more protein shakes to bulk up his muscles. Pissed by the joke, Ryoga mind controls Fafnir's hand, instantly making him punch himself in the head. A few moments later, Fafnir finishes grasping the contents of the skill book and decides to teach Ryoga everything about the art of the spear, leaving Ryoga impressed by his speed. Fafnir then throws the skill book to him, telling him to commit everything inside to memory. The skill book is known as the Birdian-style Basic Spear Mastery, and it details the basic spear techniques passed down through the Birdian family. The skill book is so easy to master as long as the contents are understood. Ryoga especially looks forward to learning the spear art because it would help him learn the Death Spiral later on. Before Ryoga's rebirth, the Death Spiral was developed by a British spear star based on the Birdian spear style. The technique is supposed to be perfected years from now, but Ryoga can't wait to be the one to complete it this time. It is one of the privileges he earned as a regressor, and he is more than happy to take advantage of it. With the snap of a finger, the spear art skillbook is instantly installed into Ryoga's system, helping him to master the technique. Ryoga is glad that skillbooks exist because skills can be instantly mastered. However, they're expensive, and using the skills well in practice isn't always as easy as instantly downloading the skills. He studies the skill overview and notes that it has 6 forms in total. Ryoga thinks this should be a piece of cake, but without warning, Fafnir lunges at him to put it into practice, catching him by surprise. As Fafnir raises his spear to strike, he tells Ryoga that martial arts are best learned through the body by experiencing them firsthand. He then thrusts the spear forward, destroying the spot where Ryoga had been standing. Fortunately, Ryoga manages to dodge the attack just in time. As the dust settles, Fafnir calmly asks him if they should begin the real practical training. Fafnir then commends him for dodging the attack, but lets him know that dodging will not help him master the spear. Ryoga reminds him that people automatically dodge when suddenly attacked, and besides, he's just a spear novice. He figures that Fafnir must be doing this as payback for mind-controlling him to hit himself earlier. Fafnir quickly denies it, and immediately changes his tone. He tells Ryoga to treat this as a real battle against an enemy who is trying to kill him. He then asks Ryoga if he plans to beg for his life and use his lack of experience with the spear as an excuse. While Ryoga is quietly considering this, Fafnir lunges forward again to attack him, but this time Ryoga is prepared as he swings the spear above his head, determined to counterattack. Using the second form of the Burdian-style spear art, rotating defense, he blocks Fafnir's attack and plans to counterattack next. Unfortunately, before he can make a move, Fafnir's spear suddenly breaks through his defense and strikes him in the chest. Ryoga then clutches his chest in pain as he pauses to catch his breath. But Fafnir reminds him that a battle doesn't end just because he received a single strike. He then warns Ryoga not to let his guard down until the fight is over. Still in pain, Ryoga is visibly confused about how his counterattack strategy went wrong because he's sure he completely blocked the attack. Fafnir assures him that he blocked the first strike perfectly, but let his guard down during the second one. He reminds Ryoga that he must also defend against the second strike, just like the first one. Hearing this, Ryoga argues that he did nothing wrong except for the fact that Fafnir is stronger than him. However, Fafnir points out that he lowered his power to perfectly match Ryoga's mediocre skills. Infuriated, Ryoga prepares to go again, letting Fafnir know that he's determined to win this time. Using the stored vital energy to strengthen his physical body, Ryoga instantly bulks up. Ryoga then charges forward and attacks with Haft Strike, the fourth form of the Burdian spear art. Fafnir easily blocks the attack, and when no counterattack comes immediately, Ryoga assumes there will not be a follow-up, so he prepares to attack again. Unfortunately, he miscalculates, and before he can react, Fafnir knocks him to the ground with a single strike, leaving him stunned as he struggles to understand what went wrong. Seeing his confusion, Fafnir explains that Ryoga was so focused on thinking about defending against a second attack that he forgot to properly defend against the first one. Ryoga had forgotten he was the one who attacked first, and after blocking it, Fafnir had not yet made his move. The moment Ryoga dropped his guard, Fafnir took advantage of the opening and struck him down. Thinking back to the beginning, Ryoga admits that Fafnir is right, so he decides to try again while still using the effects of Life Drain to bulk up. As Fafnir charges in for another round, he tells Ryoga to focus and do it properly this time. Determined to prove himself, Ryoga fearlessly charges forward head-to-head against Fafnir. A few hours after the training session, Ryoga heads to a restaurant to meet with Yuma. Surprised that his face is all bruised up, Yuma asks what happened to him, but Ryoga is too embarrassed to explain what happened, so he avoids giving a direct answer. Noticing that he clearly does not want to talk about it, Yuma decides not to press him any further. From inside the dark gloom ring, Fafnir commends Ryoga for going up against him without losing consciousness. From his tone, it seemed like Fafnir enjoyed beating him up and sarcastically mentioned that he accidentally applied too much force. But Ryoga believes that Fafnir used the training as a cover to beat him up. Fafnir, who is enjoying himself, resting inside the ring, does not deny it, but instead seems quite satisfied. He then tells Ryoga to tell him whenever he wishes to stop the training, but Ryoga lets him know that he has no plans to quit anytime soon. Even though he can rely on Life Drain to enhance his physical abilities, Ryoga doesn't just want to rely solely on it. He plans to master martial arts alongside boosting his stats, as this would ensure he can become even stronger than he was before his rebirth. Seeing the terrifyingly focused look on Ryoga's face spooks Yuma. Afterwards, Ryoga thanks Yuma for sorting out their loot and sending him his complete share of the money, which amounted to 15 million. Ryoga is impressed that he made this much in under 3 days. Yuma then tells Ryoga to call him again if another opportunity to make money arises. Ryoga then asks him if there has been any hunter-related news recently. Yuma tells him that Haibara found some strange news while browsing the HunterNet, a site exclusive to hunters. He reveals that there have been a lot of reports on the Kamakura mysterious death incident, the Kagoshima Gate, and the serial hunter killings. Ryoga is already bored listening to him talk because none of these can help him quickly level up. He still remembered most of the major incidents that happened before his regression, but he was hoping to find something useful among the smaller cases to help him level up. Just then, Yuma informs Ryoga about a gate in Wakayama called the Forgotten Temple. Ryoga remembers this place and is surprised that at this time it hasn't been cleared. Yuma goes on to explain that the gate might break at any moment since the Horizon Guild has failed to clear it for nearly a year. Apparently a fixed gate is manageable as long as the monsters that spawn inside regularly are controlled by hunters, but a break in a flow gate occurs when the mana density exceeds 100%. A break happens when a clear fails right before mana density hits 100%, causing monsters to manifest in the real world. Yuma informs Ryoga that the Horizon Guild has lifted the restrictions on the Forgotten Temple since it has entered a critical state. Now that the restrictions are lifted, even general hunters can enter, no matter their level. Ryoga then asks if any other major guilds are getting involved, and Yuma reveals that the second-ranked Phoenix Guild and third-ranked Daybreak Guild are both showing interest in the gate. Ryoga recalls that before his rebirth, the Phoenix Guild obtained an epic tier artifact named the Dragon Scale Armor from this same Forgotten Temple. Now that the gate hasn't been cleared, a wicked smile spreads across his face as he looks forward to grabbing this opportunity first. Ryoga notes that he would be unstoppable once he masters the spear techniques and grabs the dragon scale armor. Seeing the mischievous look on his face, Yuma figures that Ryoga must be plotting something devious as usual. As he prepares to leave, Ryoga excitedly tells Yuma to contact the team for a meeting the next day. The following day, Ryoga meets up with the team in front of the Forgotten Temple gate. Yuka is worried that they only brought 5 days worth of food, which would not be enough to last them. Haibara also believes that there's no way they can clear a gate that even the #1 Horizon Guild failed in just 5 days. However, Ryoga assures them that 5 days is enough time for them to do it. Just then, Haibara calls his attention to a female hunter named Mirei Asaka, famously known as the Phoenix Guild's next sword saintess. Ryoga recalls that before his regression, Mirei was the one who figured out how to clear the gate and even obtain the dragon scale armor. Back then, she was praised for having talent that surpassed even that of the Phoenix Guild's master, Takumi Morita. Unfortunately, Mirei's story was that of a tragic genius who lost everything in an accident while clearing a gate. Soon after her arrival, Yuma calls Ryoga's attention to another dude named Kaishin Goda from the Daybreak Guild. Kaishin would later go on to be recognized as one of the strongest hunters in Japan, famously known as Iron Fist. Seeing them arrive one by one, Ryoga notes that all the big names of the future have gathered in one place. Meanwhile, Yuma begins to doubt that a small fry like their team can actually clear the gate before the big names. But Ryoga tells him to stop worrying about the big guys and just focus on doing things their own way. With an unwavering determination, Ryoga silently vows to clear the gate and claim the dragon scale armor for himself. With that, he heads towards the gate with his team following behind him. Upon entering the Forgotten Temple, Ryoga immediately summons Fafnir from the Dark Gloom Ring. Seeing this, Yuma and the team begin to gossip about Ryoga turning restless spirits into undead, enslaving them. He mentions that he can never get used to it, no matter how many times he sees it. Yuka says she was also shocked when she witnessed it happen at the workshop. She questions if Ryoga might one day decide to also turn them into his undead slaves. Ryoga spooks the group when he suddenly appears behind, telling them that he has no plans of turning anyone into an undead. He then lets them know that even though he turns them, they would only be measly zombies because they're too weak. Haibara is spooked to hear this and begs Ryoga to stop teasing them with such a straight face. Ryoga is about to tell them to focus on the mission when the ruined temple pillars begin to collapse, spooking everyone. Fafnir says it is because the terrain is shifting, and Yuka also supports him. She points out that the entry requirement for the gate might be 2 stars, but its difficulty is 3 stars because the internal structure changes once a day. Apparently not just the environment, but the monster and everything inside the Forgotten Temple resets. Ryoga recalls that the temple's traits are still the same as before his regression. He orders Fafnir to take the lead while he activates Retribution Wedge and an Impure Blessing to support him. Fafnir immediately accepts the order as he confidently declares that protecting Ryoga is his duty, but Ryoga tells him to put his money where his mouth is. A few moments later, as they continue into the ruins, Fafnir pauses for a moment when he senses movement up ahead. Just as he suspected, a strange creature shrouded in dark energy appears before them, and Yuma recognizes it as a fallen cultist. The creature chuckles wickedly as he lunges forward to attack, but Fafnir counters him. Yuma is worried that the cultists might overwhelm Fafnir because they're known for being powerful. He's just about to suggest providing support when Fafnir crushes the cultist's hand and effortlessly slams him into the ground. He then punches the dude in the face to finish him, leaving Yuma in shock. Fafnir is busy relishing this win when Ryoga starts scolding him for crushing the corpse and making it impossible to turn into an undead. He then warns Fafnir to be careful next time, and Fafnir agrees. A few seconds later, more fallen cultists rush forward, and Fafnir stretches his arm as he prepares to handle them. Ryoga announces that he will be joining in this time as he pulls out the Staff of Malice. At only 12% mana consumption, he activates Bone Control, using it to attack the fallen cultists. This strike immediately slows them down, and because they have low elemental resistance, infusing them with dark and holy attributes will deal critical damage, decreasing their speed. While the fallen cultist's speed is greatly decreased, all Fafnir's stats instantly increase by 100%. As he takes them down one by one, Fafnir credits his improved Vanguard skills to his sparring match at Aragiri with Jomon. A few minutes later, he completely wipes out the fallen cultists without giving them a chance to fight back. Just then, Ryoga recalls that he's supposed to use Life Drain on the corpses, and Fafnir points out that he wouldn't have been able to use it without him. Ryoga questions where his smug confidence comes from while Fafnir fishes for a word of appreciation from him. Frustrated, Ryoga wishes he could bring back the quiet version of Kashiwagi before his regression. Afterwards, Ryoga levels up to level 20 and is informed that new knowledge has been etched into his soul. The first one is a C-rank skill known as Darkwise, a Necromancer-type spell that causes spiritual consumption to be reduced by 10%. The second one is Dark Rain for undead maintenance that reduces spiritual consumption by 20%. Ryoga is pleased with the skills and notes that they are perfect for the 5-day journey to the Forgotten Temple. He then raises the undead fallen cultists, turning them into armored zombies with exceptionally high completion levels. This improvement increases all the armored zombies' stats by 100%. Yuma asks Ryoga if the zombies will become even stronger since they have higher stats than orcs. Ryoga answers that they won't and explains that the spells etched into the zombies matter more than the materials. Yuma doesn't understand what he means, so Ryoga breaks it down by simply explaining that there's not much difference in the zombies' stats compared to before. He then announces that they have to hurry since they have a long way to go to reach the heart of the temple. As they continue the journey, Fafnir takes the lead, crushing more fallen cultists, while Yuma uses his shield to protect the team. Yuka also joins in the battle with her crossbow, while Ryoga's undead soldiers take care of the rest. However, no matter how many cultists they take down, more keep pouring in, leaving Ryoga frustrated. Suddenly, the terrain begins to change again, and Yuma informs them that they need to move faster, but Ryoga orders them to halt. As he considers what to do next, memories from before his regression begin to flood back. Ryoga recalls watching an interview where Mireille was asked about clearing the Forgotten Temple. The interviewer had asked her about the strategy for clearing the temple, and Mireille explained that it was slightly different from the normal method of defeating the final boss. According to Mireille, the temple requires a special method just to reach the final boss. Apparently, 3 different monsters appear in the temple, and when they're defeated, they drop 3 different marks. Once she collected 49 of these marks and placed them on a specific pillar, Mireille was able to reach the room where the boss monster resided. After remembering these details, Ryoga notes that they should be facing an eye pattern monster next. Just as Ryoga expected, a dark red energy begins to circle above them, and a giant eyeball creature emerges from it. It was just as Mireille said in the interview about the 3 different patterns on the pillar, and this time it was a demon eye representing the circular mark. As the demon eye shoots a laser-shaped arrow towards them, Ryoga uses his eye to read its attack patterns. He then activates bone control, and using several bones he forms a bone shield to block the laser attack. Despite the powerful laser attack, the bone shield manages to withstand it. Ryoga is pleased with this effect, and notes that the magic formula Renya engraved on them helped the bones maintain their original shape. The demon eye strikes again before Ryoga can react, almost vaporizing his head, but Fafnir steps in just in time to block the attack. He then confidently tells Ryoga to stay behind him while he promises to block everything for him. The demon eye takes another shot at them, but this time more powerful than the last, yet Fafnir remains unscathed by the laser strike. Even Fafnir himself is surprised that he came out without a scratch, so Ryoga lets him know that he put in a lot of work to make the body. He also mentions that even a 2-star attack won't be enough to break through Fafnir's scales. Confident that he has nothing to fear, Fafnir boldly charges towards the demon eye and with a single punch completely obliterates it. After defeating the demon eye, he asks if Ryoga plans to turn it into an undead. Ryoga says he can't because of the demon's weapon. Its eye will become useless if turned into an undead. Fafnir wonders what he needs something as gross as an eye for, and Ryoga explains that it is the mark required to clear the gate. Soon afterwards, the group proceeds further, only to run into their next mark, a dark creature with a smiling mask named the Mask Mimic. The creature soon jumps in front of them, creeping Yuma and Yuka out because of its eerie mask. Without warning, it begins to unleash a dark, thick miasma called the Curse of Decay. The moment the miasma hits him, Fafnir notices that his stats are rapidly decreasing due to the Mask Mimic's Curse of Decay. Ryoga wonders if he should use an impure blessing, but Fafnir tells him to wait as he tries to figure it out on his own. Studying the smoke closely, he notes that curses have the same dark attribute as spiritual power. Since it's a dark attribute attack, Fafnir figures he might be able to suppress it with spiritual power, which is a stronger dark attribute. Just as he speculated, Fafnir is able to dispel the Curse of Decay on his own by countering it with spiritual power. Ryoga already knew that an undead can absorb most curses because they have the highest tier mana among other dark attributes. However, he's still impressed that Fafnir figured this out on his own. A few moments later, the Mask Mimic attacks Fafnir with another bout of the Curse of Decay. This time, Ryoga decides to try something new by bestowing Impure Blessing on Fafnir. This creates a connection between the curse and Ryoga's blessing, using Fafnir as a medium to send holy power back to the creature, causing it to lose its power. This is mainly because holy attributes are highly effective against dark ones, and Ryoga is a saint who can use holy power. Satisfied with the effect of the test, Ryoga then uses bone control to finish the masked creature. After retrieving his bones, he takes the mask, and Kronos mocks him for having such terrible taste and fashion. But Ryoga lets him know that the mask is actually key to unlocking the secret of the Forgotten Temple. The first key was a cultist's horn, then a demon eye, and lastly, a Mask Mimic's mask. Ryoga further explains that collecting 49 of these masks and placing them on specific pillars in the temple can help them access the boss monster's hidden room. This was exactly what he remembered from Mirei's interview before his regression. She also warned that the mark on any of the items must not be destroyed while defeating the monsters. Kronos is already bored just from listening to the process and points out that the requirement is truly tedious. Ryoga says it's the exact reason why the gate hasn't been cleared for almost a year. He can't help but wonder how Mirei actually figured out such a complicated requirement on her own. Just then, Yuma informs Ryoga that the Phoenix Guild appears to be engaged in a battle nearby. Ryoga immediately turns toward the commotion and spots Mirei, the very person who had been on his mind. She and her fellow guild members were surrounded by red-eyed monsters lurking in the shadows from all sides. As Mirei prepares for battle, one of them soon jumps out of the shadows, and it turns out to be a mask mimic. With a single strike, she cuts through the monster while Ryoga and Kronos watch from afar. Kronos wonders if Mirei's sword is imbued with chi, and Ryoga explains that her technique is one of the forms of Gale Sword. He further adds that the user will be struck instead if they don't accurately strike the target's flaw. Ryoga is impressed that Mirei flawlessly defeated the monster in a single strike. Having watched enough, he then orders his team to pick up the pace before Mirei and her team catch up to them. As the group continues to march forward, they briefly catch Mirei's attention. When one of her teammates asks if she's curious about them, Mirei admits that she finds them interesting. The fact that they were using undead as summons and how bold they seemed made her wonder if they had found a way to solve the mystery behind clearing the dungeon. The boy dismisses her worry, assuring her that there's no way such a ragtag group solved a mystery that the #1 guild couldn't solve. He assumes that Ryoga's group is simply killing monsters to pass the time without any particular goal. However, Mirei believes there is more to Ryoga than meets the eye. After all, no ordinary person could confidently navigate a gate filled with unknown mysteries without showing even the slightest hesitation. After considering it for a while, Mirei concludes that Ryoga definitely knows something, and she can't shake off the feeling that she'll be seeing more of him. 5 days after Ryoga's group began their quest to conquer the Forgotten Temple, enemies were still pouring in from all sides. The group was already running on fumes as they continued to complain about the endless monster attacks. Before they could even finish voicing their complaints, another wave of fallen cultists started arriving. Without wasting any time, Fafnir jumps into action, taking down a bunch of them with nothing but his fists. Kronos is impressed as he praises him for having the makings of a true hero. Irritated that he wasn't getting any credit, Ryoga reminds Kronos that he has also been working hard. To prove this, he immediately orders his undead soldiers to support Fafnir. While the undead attack the fallen cultists, Ryoga sucks their vitality using life drain. He soon levels up to level 27 and is pleased with himself for being able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But Kronos rains on his parade, telling him to be a bit more graceful when laughing instead of looking like a punk. Annoyed, Ryoga scolds him for the unsolicited critique, but Kronos says he wants his chosen one to move with more class and poise. As Ryoga crouches to harvest the cultist's horns, he sarcastically apologizes to Kronos for being a classless brute. After placing the marks next to the pillars, Ryoga notes that he has placed a total of 48 marks. He then notices that the members of the Phoenix and Daybreak guilds have already left the temple, probably for a break, so Ryoga decides it's the best time to clear the gate. He then orders his team to head out of the gate to sell their monostone haul. When Yuma asks about him, Ryoga says he wants to stay back to level up while they're gone. Once they leave, Ryoga continues the quest with Fafnir and the undead soldiers. Inside this section of the temple, Fafnir notes that the changes are quite different from before. He suggests heading out like everyone else since they've not even seen anyone from the Phoenix Guild. Ryoga refuses to back out, and Fafnir reminds him that he's about to be Monster Chow, but Ryoga confidently declares that he's about to clear the Forgotten Temple. Fafnir is surprised to hear this and wonders if there's another clear condition. Ryoga then explains it to him properly, saying he needs to place marks on pillars with these patterns. It is at this point that Fafnir realized why Ryoga has been defeating monsters and collecting certain parts from them. Ryoga then tells him that they need to place it themselves because the undead soldiers lack intelligence. Turning to face Fafnir, Ryoga urges him to run around as much as he can to complete the task. Before they can continue, Ryoga suddenly senses movements, but before he can react, the temple's terrain begins to change again, taking out one of his armored zombies. As the structures around him begin to collapse, Ryoga swiftly moves forward to prevent being crushed. Since the temple's transformation speed has increased, he decides to hurry to the next spot. He pauses for a moment to search for the last pillar, but Fafnir finds it first and calls out to him to check it out. Ryoga hurriedly rushes over to his location, but before he can get there, the temple begins to transform again, leaving him frustrated. Fortunately, Fafnir is still close to the pillar, so he tells Ryoga to hand over the mark. Ryoga immediately throws it over, and Fafnir successfully places it on the pillar. However, nothing happens, and Ryoga is about to be crushed by the terrain shift. To make matters worse, he's unable to move forward, but as the temple begins to collapse, almost crushing him, the pillar is activated instantly, stopping the collapse. Ryoga heaves a sigh of relief while Fafnir informs him that the path to the basement has appeared. Ryoga is relieved as they march into the basement because he already thought they were toast before, since the pillar took forever to activate. He then tells Fafnir to get ready since the real challenge begins now, and Fafnir confidently stretches his arms as he prepares to take down the so-called final boss. A few moments later, the duo arrives at the entrance to the boss room, home to the Kamenjan Death Guardian. Even before opening the door, Ryoga can already sense an ominous aura coming from within. As he carefully pushes the door open, a thunderous growl erupts from inside. Standing before him is the Kamenjan Death Guardian, a hideous hybrid created by fusing a fallen cultist, several mask mimics, and a demon eye. Fafnir and Ryoga are instantly repulsed by the monstrous creature, and without hesitation it launches an attack on them with a laser from the demon eye and the curse of decay. Fafnir immediately jumps in front of Ryoga to protect him and prepares to counter the attack. Vowing not to let anyone hurt his master, Fafnir fearlessly blocks the attacks. Unfortunately, the monster unleashes a dark curse and uses it to mentally attack Ryoga. As soon as the curse hits him, Ryoga clutches his head in pain as warped dark creatures begin to flood into his mind space. Fafnir notices something and calls out to him several times, but he gets no answer. At the same time, the monster that has managed to seep into Ryoga's consciousness calls him a foolish human, gladly telling him to die. But to the creature's shock, Ryoga remains unscathed and even jokingly teases the monster for having fun by itself. Deciding to join in the fun, Ryoga instantly activates Clear Mind to resist the mental attacks. Afterwards, he unleashes his impure blessing on the monster, causing all its stats to decrease by 20%. While the boss monster is weakened by Ryoga's impure blessing, Fafnir is juiced up by it. As he rushes forward to finish it, the monster unleashes several dark laser attacks, but Fafnir swiftly dodges them. While still shooting a ton of lasers, the monster's voice echoes as it tells Fafnir to stop running. But the next moment, Fafnir sneaks up from behind it and, activating a dark aura, he enhances his fist and punches several holes through the monster. The boss monster screeches in pain as bubbles begin to form on the parts of its body where Fafnir punched. Fafnir is repulsed by the disgusting sight, and his hand soon starts bubbling just like Kamengan's body. Confused, Fafnir stares at the disgusting sight on his hand as he tries to figure out what is happening. The system informs him that Kamengan's body is collapsing due to the skills, ectoplasm, and dirty skin. Ryoga already figured out what was happening, so he bestowed impure blessings upon Fafnir, instantly restoring his body. After his body is restored, Fafnir immediately begins to attack Kamengan relentlessly, using the Kinetic Combat Arts Form 7 to deliver 10 consecutive strikes. He continues to punch until he finally punches a hole through the monster, causing Kamengan to scream in pain. Kamengan then grabs its legs as it laments about the pain and also wonders why its curse is not working on Fafnir. Enraged, the monster tries to attack Fafnir, declaring that it would end him. But Fafnir easily dodges the attack while mocking Kamengan for being too slow because of the holes in its knees. While Kamengan is still attempting to land a blow, Fafnir notices its knees swiftly regenerating. Panicking, he quickly calls Ryoga's attention to it, asking what they should do about the monster's regeneration speed. However, Ryoga isn't worried about it and decides to end Kamengan in one shot by using bone control to strike him in the same place. Kamengan is infuriated by this and its voice echoes as it vows to end Ryoga for sure. Kamengan then pulls out its ultimate move by unleashing a curse formula called Dark Wave. Fafnir simply blocks the attack with his hand, while Ryoga orders the armored zombies to form a defensive formation around himself. But as the Dark Wave hits them, it instantly vaporizes them on the spot. Ryoga then charges forward, and before Kamengan can react, he places his palm in front of it to activate the Retribution Wedge. This move instantly seals the monster's movement, making it unable to move. With Kamengan's movement temporarily sealed, Ryoga orders Fafnir to finish him. Fafnir immediately activates the Form 5 of the Kinetic Combat Arts as he leaps forward. He unleashes the single-strike crushing blow on Kamengan's demon eye, completely defeating the monster. After the defeat, Fafnir gains a large amount of experience points, leveling up to level 6. Ryoga is also impressed with the results because his own level went up by 2 since it was a boss-level monster. When he remarks that this was just the opening act, Fafnir asks him about the main attraction. As they move forward, Ryoga points to the altar behind Kamengan, where the final prize is waiting on an altar. Upon reaching the altar, Fafnir points out that the armor is good, and Ryoga agrees with him. After all, it was the legendary dragon scale armor. It was a transcendent grade item with no restrictions and a durability of 5,000. Apparently the armor was crafted from dragon bones and it can self-repair itself. It also attunes to the wearer's mana and changes shape according to their will. Pleased with the bounty, Ryoga happily decides to accept it without hesitation. To his surprise, as soon as he places his hand on the armor, it begins to equip itself on his body. As the armor attunes itself to his body, Ryoga can't contain his happiness and admits that it is better than he expected. He learns that the armor can also provide strike and magic resistance and improve agility by 10%. Fafnir is impressed by the armor, but he's more excited to go all out without holding back during their spear training session. He explains that he was holding back on his punches for fear of hurting his master, but with armor like this, there will no longer be a need for him to hold back. Ryoga can't help but feel Fafnir seems happy, because he now has a legitimate reason to beat him up. Fafnir quickly turns around to hold back his laughter while denying the accusation. He swears that he only wants to do his best to strengthen his master, but Ryoga doesn't buy it. After testing out the armor, Ryoga pulls it into the ring, announcing it's time for them to head back. Just as they're about to leave, something falls out of Kamengen's corpse, drawing Ryoga's attention. A few moments later, the hunters are informed that the boss of the Forgotten Temple has been subjugated and the gate will be closing in 3 minutes. Everyone is shocked to hear this as they begin to wonder if Mireille from Phoenix cleared the temple. Someone mentions that it can't be Phoenix, or the press would have been swarming here right now. Since it isn't Phoenix, they wonder if it's Kaishin from Daybreak. Soon afterward, Ryoga and Fafnir step out of the gate, where Yuma rushes forward to inform Ryoga that the temple has been cleared. Ryoga bluntly reveals that he cleared it, but Yuma's brain doesn't register what he said until 3 seconds later. His brain then buffers for another 3 seconds as he tries to digest what he just heard. It finally dawns on Yuma that Ryoga was the one who cleared it, and just as he is about to scream out to make this known, Ryoga covers his mouth, telling him that his voice is too loud. Yuma then calms down, whispering and telling Ryoga that he is the first to clear the temple, and by announcing this he will become a celebrity in an instant. Ryoga lets Yuma know that he is not interested in letting anyone know that he is the one who cleared because he basically hates being the center of attraction. Ryoga then mentions that he will add the boss's reward to the settlement, but the trio lets him know that they didn't participate in the boss raid, so taking a share of that doesn't sit right with them. Ryoga is surprised that Yuma didn't even ask him what the boss dropped. Apparently, the boss had dropped a Mask of Shadows, which is engraved with multiple curses, and then a skill book, Thrill of the Hunt, which allows a prey to be tracked up to 10 kilometers. Ryoga is thankful because he didn't even want to give out the artifacts he got at the end, which is why he was thinking of compensating with money. Ryoga tries to convince them, but Yuma lets him know that their minds are already made up, so he should forget about trying to convince them. Since he has gotten what he wanted, Ryoga says it is time for him to head home. On the other hand, Kaishin has approached Mireille, asking her if they were the ones who cleared the temple. But Mireille lets him know that they are not the ones because it would have become public knowledge if they were the ones. Kaishin expresses his frustration because they have finally finished their preparations and he doesn't understand how it could have been cleared already. Mireille is more concerned because she is starting to suspect that it might be Ryoga. However, she doesn't want to believe that, and she shrugs it off. Soon afterward, they return to the workshop and Renya comes running toward Ryoga. Ryoga asks him if Aragiri has shown up, and Renya immediately confirms that Ryoga was the one who put him in the limelight. Ryoga lets him know that he only helped, since he was worried about marketing the potions. Renya screams out, telling Ryoga that it has been hard for him because a lot of orders have been coming in. His phone has been ringing non-stop thanks to the number of orders he has received, and Renya even feared that he was going to die from stress. Ryoga asks him if he didn't like the marketing strategy, but Renya quickly clears the air, saying it serves as great advertising, but the stress is just overwhelming. Ryoga then tells him that results are what matter most, because even if he is dying of stress, things still worked out well in the end. Ryoga asks him for progress, and he mentions that the patent for the mid-grade potion has been applied for, so they are going to be ready for mass production in no time. Renya adds that the items that he ordered have arrived too. Ryoga is glad to hear this, since he knows how hard it must have been to obtain a rare orb. Apparently, it is a darkness orb, and when it is used by a dark mage or similar, the magic power is amplified. Ryoga then tells Fafnir to stand straight, and Fafnir asks him if he is about to pull something strange yet again. Ryoga places the orb on his chest, and he tells Fafnir to stop assuming things. Ryoga pours his dark mana into the orb, and it generates a weird energy that flows into Fafnir. Fafnir asks him what is happening, and Ryoga mentions that he is using the power of the orb to increase the synchronization rate between his soul and the Dragonian corpse. However, it still did not complete it, as it is stuck on a 7% completion rate. Fafnir asks him why the synchronization is still incomplete, and Ryoga replies that it lies in one simple truth, and it is the fact that he is going to die if the orb breaks. Suddenly, Ryoga hurls the orbs into the distance, and Fafnir jumps into flash mode, catching the orb before it hits the ground. Ryoga commends his reaction speed, telling him that it appears that his speed improved because the synchronization rate went up. Fafnir holds the orb like a baby out of fear that he is going to die if it breaks. After the whole shenanigan with Fafnir, Ryoga turns to Yuma and his team, asking them if they are up to collecting mana stones for him, and they say yes. Ryoga then brings out the boss he defeated in the dungeon, telling Yuma to extract the mana stone, but keep the original form of the corpse intact. Yuma asks him if he plans to turn the corpse into an undead too, but Ryoga says he is planning to make a golem. Yuma is shocked to hear this, and Ryoga tells him that his level isn't high enough to create high-tier undead just yet, so he thought he would make a golem instead. It is pretty obvious that he is going to need an alchemist and materials, but he is not worried about an alchemist because he has already secured one. Basically, what he needs now are the materials. Ryoga then heads to Ground Zero, which was called the Saiju Outlet in the past, but after the Great Change, it turned into a lawless zone where money rules the world. Ryoga heads to a bar, and Fafnir asks him if he is sure that he is in the right place because it appears to be a vintage bar. Ryoga then replies that he has business with the owner there, Madame Shuri. To everyone in the regular world, she is a bar owner, but in reality, she is a broker who mediates back-alley deals. Even though he currently doesn't know her power level at the moment, he still believes that she would have what he currently needs. Upon stepping into the bar, Ryoga and Fafnir find it scattered with beaten-up bodies lying around. Ryoga then walks up to one of the bloodied dudes to ask him where Shuri is. The dude returns the question by asking Ryoga who he is, but Ryoga points out the fact that what he wants to know is where the manager is. The dude brazenly replies that he has no intention of telling him, but after a quick beating, his tone changes. He wastes no time revealing that the woman escaped about 30 minutes ago, but his comrades are currently tracking her, so he doesn't know more than that. Fafnir expresses his concern about finding the woman because it is already 30 minutes. However, Ryoga tells him that this is no problem whatsoever, as he activates the Mask of Shadows to use the Soul Chase skill. With this, Ryoga is able to track the woman's soul trail, and he tells Fafnir to come with him. Meanwhile, Shuri is seen running through an alley trying to escape from her deadly assailants, but they appear to be a relentless bunch. Apparently, the ones chasing her are from the Red Spider organization, and Shuri wonders why they are after her because she hasn't done anything to get on their bad side. Even though she has no idea why she's been chased, she knows that it is not going to end well for her if she is caught. Moments later, she finds herself trapped between the assailants, who have found a way to surround her. The leader of the squad commends Shuri for making them work really hard before they could get her, and seeing that she is backed against the wall, Shuri whips out her dagger, telling them that they are in for a world of pain if they underestimate her. However, the squad leader teases her, telling her to stop bluffing because it is obvious that she no longer has any mana to fight with. Shuri dares the dude to come at her to find out if she is bluffing or not, but deep down, Shuri is worried that she has been cornered. Suddenly, Ryoga's voice cuts through the silence as he confidently shows himself, asking them if there is a show going on because there seem to be a lot of people gathered. With Ryoga announcing his presence to the assailants, they urge him to stay away if he doesn't want to get hurt, but Ryoga replies by summoning Fafnir. Even with Fafnir with Ryoga, the assailants are not worried, and they urge him to think twice because even a summon won't save him. The leader of the squad then sends his men after Ryoga, but the first guy gets punched so hard that he is sent flying into the air like a balloon. Another rushes toward Fafnir, hoping to use the opening he has to hit him, but Fafnir is too fast for him, and he delivers a quick punch that sends the dude into a wall. The leader of the team is utterly pissed when he sees his boys getting thrown around, and he activates his fire spell. The lady screams at Ryoga, trying to warn him. The leader manages to get the fire to hit Fafnir, unleashing massive firepower on him, but when the fire intensity reduces, their smile drops because Fafnir is completely unharmed by the fire. The dude freaks out, wondering why his fire is not working, and he tries to activate the spell again, wondering what is going on, but he gets punched so hard that his soul leaves his body because he hits a wall. With the leader out, Fafnir successfully takes out the team. Ryoga stares at the woman and notices that there is no scar on her face, unlike before the regression, which basically means the scar on her face was caused by the fire dude. However, with his intervention this time around, it appears that the woman will be fine. Just then, the madam's butler shows up, breathing heavily, while asking his boss what happened. The woman replies that she has no idea, but she tells him that the red spiders suddenly came after her. Ryoga takes a keen look at the butler, and seeing the aura emanating from his body, Ryoga can see that he is pretty strong. The butler asks her about Ryoga and Fafnir, and she lets him know that they were the ones who saved her life, so they are obviously not bad people. She thanks Ryoga once again, and Ryoga humbly replies that he only came for a drink, and when he didn't see anyone, he followed the bad guys. Ryoga then tells Shuri to stay still as he activates his life drain skill to restore her health. Shuri is surprised as she was healed in an instant, and she asks Ryoga if he is a priest, to which he says yes. Kronos doesn't waste time jumping at Ryoga to tease him for using his powers, and Ryoga tells the shameless old man to at least have some level of decency. After this, Shuri takes them back to her bar, where she asks Ryoga if there is anything he wants, and Ryoga lets her know what he would like to have. Shuri is shocked when Ryoga says he wants milk, and she offers to give him coffee if he is not an alcoholic. Shuri does as she said while asking him why he came to the bar. Ryoga doesn't hold back as he tells the lady that he wants a ticket to the underground auction. Upon hearing this, Shuri decides to give him her business card instead of a ticket, telling him that if he shows this, no one at Ground Zero besides the Red Spider would interfere with him. Nonetheless, she is curious about why he is looking to go to the auction, and Ryoga lets her know that he is in need of a mana engine, which is basically a tool that generates mana on its own, and it is used in the production of mana tools. Ryoga mentions that he wants one with an output of 3-star level or higher, and Shuri tells him that she highly doubts the possibility of him getting this at the underground auction. Ryoga sighs in desperation when he hears this, because if he doesn't get it at the auction, this means he might have to clear a gate to get his hands on a mana engine. He is beating himself up about this when Shuri asks him if he would like to take on a request, which is to clear the ant cave gate under the management of the Red Spiders, and they use this as a source of bloodstones. Ryoga is surprised that Shuri is not even wasting time, as she is already looking to take down the Red Spiders, who came after her immediately. Basically, the reward for clearing the gate is a mana engine, and Shuri teases him, telling him that she never said she didn't have a mana engine. Ryoga chuckles when he hears this, and he asks her if what she is saying is that he should retaliate against the Red Spiders. He reminds her that they are a major power at Ground Zero, and messing with them will only put a target on his back. Shuri tells him that it is not going to be a problem as long as he wipes them out. She lays it out that he wants a mana engine, and in return, she wants the Red Spiders gone, so it is basically a win-win situation. Ryoga thinks about the reward and knows that the engine he is getting is top tier among the others, which is a really good one. Shuri then adds 10 kilograms of Arachne silk to the reward, telling Ryoga that it is on the house. After thinking about it for a minute, Ryoga tells the woman that he is interested in taking the request. Shuri then indirectly asks Ryoga if he is higher than a 3-star because, from what she saw earlier, there are indications of this. Ryoga then drops a shocker, telling her that he is 1-star. Later on, at the Ant Cave Gate entrance, which is guarded by Red Spider-Men, Shuri appears in the bushes, and she stabs the ground with her dagger to activate a barrier spell, the Butterfly's Dream, which disables all communication and movement skills in the area. The team is communicating with each other when they notice that something is wrong, but before they realize what is happening, Fafnir descends upon them, tearing them up. With the guards out of the way, Ryoga prepares to enter the gate, and he thanks Shuri for helping take care of the Red Spiders on the scene. Shuri then asks him if he is really planning on going alone without forming a party, but after seeing the determination on his face, she can only urge him to be careful. Ryoga acknowledges this, and he proceeds into the gate with an evil smile on his face. Upon entering, Ryoga releases the bone skeletons, telling them to work hard for him. Fafnir is also eager to take on the bad guys, and Ryoga lets him know that killing monsters or hunters really doesn't matter. They soon run into a red slime, which has a corrosive trait, and it is rated 3-star. Fafnir is drawn in by the slime's cuteness, but Ryoga tells him to stay on his guard because the slime might be cute on the outside, but it is strong enough to melt iron. Fafnir then asks him how he is supposed to take down the slime, and Ryoga lets him know that the slime spreads its body thin when it hunts, so he just has to destroy the slime's core in that opening. Fafnir stretches as he prepares to take on the slime, saying it is pretty easy to deal with. Just then, the slime lunges toward him, spreading out like butter while exposing its core. Without hesitation, Fafnir punches the core to oblivion, shattering the slime in one hit. Ryoga commends him for taking out the slime in just one hit, but Fafnir calls Ryoga's attention to the fact that there is no corpse left, since it is a freaking slime. Fafnir uses this to tease Ryoga, saying this basically means his skill won't work there. Fafnir laughs at Ryoga, telling him that this means he is the star for the current gate clearance. Since Ryoga's ego cannot allow him to accept less from Fafnir, he tells him that he is just going to use the slime's soul if there is no corpse left. Ryoga then activates his power, and he pulls the slime back together by making it a ghost. Fafnir is curious when he sees this, and he asks Ryoga what the ghost can do. Ryoga replies that the ghost is capable of debuffs and persistent damage, so he decides to show Fafnir how to use it. He sends the ghost slime after the active red slimes, and by enveloping its body around the active slimes, it decreases their strength by 2%, while inflicting fatigue too. The slimes immediately become sluggish, and seeing how effective the ghost slime is, Fafnir opens his mouth in complete shock. Ryoga lets him know that ghost slimes are not even many yet, telling him that once the effects stack, the ghost slime will even become more dangerous. Ryoga tells Fafnir to stay on his toes until he has enough ghosts to play around with. Seeing that Ryoga always finds a way around everything, Fafnir sighs in defeat. Meanwhile, the Red Spider Collection team is deep inside the gate, and they have amassed quite a large number of bloodstones. Basically, one stone is 1.2 million, which makes the stones very important. The leader of the squad, a colored-headed dude, Kotetsu Osabe, tells his men to make sure that nothing goes wrong, because their last failed mission against Shuri was a major blow to their operations. Suddenly they notice that there has been no response from those on the outside for quite some time now. Osabe fears the worst, and he tells his team to prepare to take out anything that comes around. He hasn't finished giving the order when a skeleton guard appears before them, letting out an annoying cackle. Osabe expresses his surprise because they have never encountered a skeleton before in the dungeon. Suddenly they spot ghost slimes moving towards them too, and Osabe orders that they burn them to nothing. The team unleashes its firepower on the skeleton, but the skeleton blocks the attack with the shield. They are in the middle of this when Fafnir suddenly appears from behind the skeleton, dashing towards them. This leaves Osabe questioning everything he knows because he has never seen a lizard fight beside a skeleton before. He immediately lets off a huge fireball. Ryoga's bone spear comes from behind to cut down the explosion, leaving Osabe completely shocked. This gives Fafnir the time to dash towards the team with the aim of taking them down with his hand-to-hand combat. The first couple of dudes get punched so hard that they are immediately knocked out. Ryoga finally shows himself, teasing Osabe, asking him if he is already scared that his current mission is going to be a failure, just like the Shuri mission. The moment Osabe hears this, he immediately figures out that Ryoga was the one who interfered in their last mission. Osabe figures out that Ryoga fights by summoning monsters, which means they have a chance to end the whole thing if they just kill him. Osabe then tells one of his guys to keep Fafnir busy, while he and the rest launch a simultaneous attack on Ryoga. The dude acknowledges the order, and he dashes toward Fafnir with his shield, but Fafnir doesn't hold back before unleashing a powerful punch at him. Fafnir's punch breaks through the shield, but the moment he does this, Osabe activates a spell, which binds him. Fafnir is shocked when he sees a weird string holding down his right arm to the shield. The dude boasts about the binding magic, telling Fafnir that it is one of Osabe's trump cards. Fafnir tries to pull out his hand, and he is surprised that he can't pull out his hand. While Fafnir is dealing with the bind, the rest of the team charges toward Ryoga with their weapons in hand. Kronos senses the danger, and he asks Ryoga what he plans to do about it. Ryoga only smiles even though he is in danger because he already knew that they were going to come up with other plans to stop him. Just then, he unleashes the ghost slimes on them, and as the slimes pass through them, they suffer debuffs, from their strength reducing to their agility tanking. Ryoga tries to launch a surprise attack with a bone spear, but they are able to crush the attack, and Ryoga figures out that he won't be able to take down the enemies using the bone spear, since they are 3-star hunters, which means they are capable. The hunters tear through the skeleton guard relatively easily, and this gives them the incentive to rush at Ryoga. Ryoga then proceeds to use bone control and the bone spear skill to create a spinal spear, as he prepares to engage them with the spear skill that he has been training for quite some time. The first dude gets hit so hard that even Osabe is stunned from where he is standing, and Ryoga confidently tells them to prepare themselves to see the results of his training. One of the hunters is pissed that a mage like Ryoga is able to take down a martial artist, and he angrily goes after Ryoga, aiming to tear his head apart with a club. However, Ryoga blocks the attack using the bone control skill. The attacker gasps desperately as he stares annoyingly at Ryoga. Ryoga confidently tells him that someone of his level cannot stand up to him, but this only makes the dude angrier as he rushes toward Ryoga, telling him not to underestimate him. Using bone control again, Ryoga unleashes a series of attacks on the attackers. Even with all of these, the dude gets the chance to land a hit on Ryoga, but to his dismay, Ryoga remains unharmed, while his spear gets shattered. In a moment of complete shock, the dragon armor appears on his body, leaving the attacker shocked. The dude is still in shock when Ryoga pushes the broken bone into his neck, taking him out on the spot. He lets him know that he actually lured him in on purpose, and since he has taken out his adversary, Ryoga screams at Fafnir, telling him to round things up at his own end too. Fafnir finally decides to get serious, and he raises his left arm as high as he can, unleashing a deadly punch that twists the attacker's head before sending him into the distance. The others are shocked to see their teammate getting trashed, but Osabe urges them to stay strong and fight instead of running away. He is in the middle of encouraging his team when Fafnir punches Osabe through his magic circle, shattering it and sending him straight into a wall. Osabe hits the wall, and he is utterly pissed at the slight thought that he might lose to a lizard the way things are going. Before he gets the chance to pull himself together, Fafnir lunges toward him and kicks him in the tummy. Osabe is sent crashing to the ground, and Fafnir lets him know that he is pretty weak, so he is not even supposed to show his face. With everyone taken care of, Fafnir asks Ryoga if he is fine, and Ryoga, donning his dragon armor, assures Fafnir that he is good. However, Ryoga admits that Osabe is pretty good because he was able to resist Fafnir to some extent. Since he is pretty strong, Ryoga doesn't want Osabe to go to waste, and he proceeds to collect his soul for his use. He also recovers the corpses just in case, and he tells Fafnir that it is time for them to clear the gate. They push open the giant door leading to the boss room to find a big red slime waiting for them. The slime has 3 cores within it, but everything ends in a flash. Moments later, Ryoga and Fafnir step out of the gate, and Shuri is shocked to find out that they were able to clear the gate. Ryoga tells the woman that Red Spider was pretty weak compared to the expectations he had for them. In fact, the boss was even weaker as Fafnir took it down in one hit. Ryoga then asks Shuri if it is fine that he keeps the boss's drop item, and Shuri says yes. Ryoga asks her what is up with the rest of the Red Spider, and she lets him know that they must have noticed that communication has been cut off, so it is likely they will make a move soon. Since this is the case, Fafnir doesn't think it is okay for them to be sitting around relaxing. However, Ryoga tells him to chill out because he is pretty sure that Shuri already has a plan. Shuri smiles as she confirms this, and she tells the two to follow her. Not long after this, they arrive at Shuri's warehouse, where she gives Ryoga the promised mana engine. Shuri uses her computer to activate the mana engine to show Ryoga that it is still active, and Ryoga is blown away by how effective the engine's output is. However, Shuri tells Ryoga that if he later finds any fault with the mana engine, she is not going to do anything about it. Ryoga berates her for this, and she lets him know that the mana engine is a prototype, so if there are problems, they are basically stuck in the same boat. Ryoga is disappointed when he hears this because he was aiming to make Shuri owe him if the engine malfunctioned, but it appears that she has every area covered. Ryoga finally admits that he is not going to complain if anything goes wrong, and he asks her if she can ship the engine to Saitama, which Shuri says she can. Later on, Fafnir and Ryoga show up at Renya's workshop, and he rushes over to welcome Ryoga, expressing his relief that he came back safe and sound. Ryoga asks him why he was worried, and Renya reminds him that he is dealing with the underground world, so even if he told him he came back as a ghost, he would actually believe it. Ryoga then tells him that he didn't become a ghost, but instead, he caught one. Ryoga proudly unveils Osabi's ghost, and Renya almost pisses his trousers when he sees this. Ryoga scolds him, telling him that he is overreacting, and Renya admits, saying he would do the same if a ghost suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Ryoga then tells him to get along well with the ghost because they are going to be seeing each other more often. Renya screams out in agony, dragging Fafnir as if to save him, saying he finds it hard to even deal with horror movies, let alone an actual ghost. Ryoga ignores his cries and he walks off, saying he has to go to sleep. Ryoga hits the bed, and he immediately passes out, but he suddenly finds himself in a weird space. The system tells him that because his divinity as a constellation has increased, he now has an audience at the Star Hall. Ryoga is then moved to the Star Hall related to him, the heaven-defying giant. Ryoga stares into the empty space wondering where he is, and just then, Kronos, in his giant form, appears before Ryoga. Ryoga shows no sign of respect as he scolds Kronos for appearing in his dream without permission. Kronos lets him know that he is not dreaming because he is currently in the Star Hall. Basically, Kronos can now summon people to the Star Hall because his divinity has increased. Ryoga is surprised to finally see the Star Hall where he can have an audience with a constellation, and he notices that the surroundings are similar to the Pantheon. Basically, the Pantheon is the place where all constellations gather, while the Star Hall is the space for each constellation. In the Star Hall, a constellation grants blessings to those who have made a guardian star contract, and Ryoga asks Kronos why he took the pain to call him to the Star Hall. Ryoga is already expecting some new spells from him, but Kronos shocks him, telling him that there is nothing he can give him at the moment because he only has a few achievements as a constellation. However, he tells Ryoga that there is something that he has to do. The system tells him that to receive divine protection and blessings, he must raise the divinity of the guardian star, Kronos. To raise the constellation's divinity, he has to execute one of two things. The first is to acquire a holy relic, or the second is to build a temple. Basically, building a temple to worship a constellation will achieve an unofficial accomplishment, and since Ryoga knows that the holy relic is currently out of his hands, he considers building a temple instead. The next morning, Ryoga wakes the rest of the team, who are now using the workshop as their sleeping place, even though Renya never gave permission for this. Ryoga tells the team that he has something to tell them. The trio is surprised at how serious Ryoga is, and Yuma quickly urges his teammates to shut their mouths. Ryoga proceeds to ask them a weird question, which is their reasons for being a hunter. Yuma replies that they became hunters to earn money, and when Ryoga hears his answer, he commends him, saying he is relieved that he didn't say something unrealistic like wanting to be heroes. Haibara speaks out, talking about how there is no way they would follow a money grubber like Ryoga if they didn't care about money, but Yuma quickly punches him in the stomach to shut him up. Ryoga then tells them that he has a proposal, and the proposal revolves around the trio forming an official party with him. Yuma is confused when he hears this because he believes that they were already a party, but Ryoga calls his attention to the fact that it is not official. He reminds him that he was just paying him and having them do chores, but from that moment forward he doesn't want to just hire them for jobs because he wants them to work together. Ryoga asks them what they think about this, and Yuma quickly replies that they are up for it. Haibara, being the dumbest dude who can't read the room, tells Ryoga that they are going to follow him until they are about to die. With a smile on her face, Yuka also tells Ryoga that she is in, and Ryoga is pleased with their answers. He tells the trio to pack up because they are leaving to spend a month at the boundary. The trio is exhilarated when they hear this, but little do they know that Ryoga has plans for them at the boundary. As they get close to the boundary, Ryoga tells the team that he has something to tell them, but he lets them know that they are not allowed to ask questions. Ryoga confesses, saying he is a saint who levels up as a necromancer, and the trio loses every sense of reasoning when they hear this because it is something that should be impossible. It finally dawns on the team why Ryoga is able to summon the undead. Ryoga then tells the team that, since he is a saint acting as a god's proxy, he needs to build a temple, basically a necromancer's temple, a necropolis. Yuma asks him what the necropolis is, and Ryoga replies that it is the city of the undead, which will serve as the stronghold for necromancy. Apparently, near the border, monsters and hunters are engaged in an endless wave of battle, which is why it is filled with the presence of death. As a territory for a necromancer, Ryoga believes that there is no better place than this area. Ryoga tells them that the first mission is to look around for a plot of land that is suitable for building. Fafnir tells him that a place that is hard to attack should be their goal, and Yuma asks him if he plans to build the temple the moment they find a suitable land. Ryoga says no, revealing that a necropolis must be built in a location where a spiritual vein flows. Ryoga then unleashes Osabe, telling him to keep an eye on the surroundings. Once they are all prepared, they proceed further into the woods. Moments later, Osabe informs Ryoga that there are enemies up ahead, and just then, they run into lizard men. Yuma is still talking about how fast the lizards are when Fafnir rushes toward them, telling Yuma that they are nothing but weak lizards. Yuma screams out, warning Fafnir to be careful because they have tough scales, which means blunt attacks won't work. Yuma hasn't finished his statement when Fafnir ultimately knocks one of the lizards down, totally with nothing but blunt force. Yuma's face lights up when he sees this, and he urges Fafnir not to worry about what he said. The rest of the lizardmen rush toward Fafnir, but he happily takes them on as he one-shots all of them. Being a necromancer, Ryoga raises the lizards, and he protects them with the bone armor. Ryoga lets the team know that monsters gather in areas where strong spiritual veins flow, so he urges them to stay sharp as they move forward. As they move further into the woods, they encounter more monsters, which they easily take care of. While Fafnir is trashing the monsters, Yuma and the others are collecting the mana stones. Not long after this, they arrive at a location that borders a stream of water, and Ryoga immediately tells his men that they have found the right spot. Fafnir asks him if he is sure about the location because it appears that it is going to stand out a whole lot. In addition to this, Fafnir doesn't think the monsters who make the place their home are going to just welcome them in. Ryoga tells him that they are in the perfect place because this is a location where spiritual veins converge. Ryoga then tells Yuma that he is going to leave the camp preparations to him and his colleagues, but Yuma is worried about the number of enemies there, asking if they are not supposed to help out too. However, Ryoga smiles, telling Yuma that in front of a necromancer, the number of enemies he has to face is nothing to him. Ryoga then activates bone control to show Yuma why he said this. With little to no effort, the bones impale the monsters, one-shotting them. Moments later, the monster horde in the area has been completely wiped out, and Ryoga activates his skill to separate the monster flesh from their bone. He then proceeds with bone control as he prepares to build the necropolis. It turns out that he plans to build an obelisk as a symbol of the temple. Kronos is surprised to hear this, since an obelisk is a monument built to worship the sun god, Ra. Basically, the sun is the symbol of life, and it is the complete opposite of death, so Ryoga considers it the perfect symbol. In fact, he plans to make the obelisk black, which is an act that defies the foundation of the world. After a while of putting the bones together, Ryoga finally completes the framework, and he proceeds to the main part, which is building the insides of the temple. As he does this, his power reacts to the spiritual vein, causing spiritual power to converge on the center. Just then, the system warns him that a massive amount of spiritual power is being consumed as the monster's bodies and bones are being merged together to form what Ryoga envisions in his mind. With the amount of power he is pushing out, Ryoga starts straining himself, but he is not ready to give up. He continues pushing, aiming to give it everything he has, and he completely ignores the system's blaring warnings. Ryoga pulls together the spiritual powers, and after minutes of intense struggle, Ryoga finally completes the obelisk, which is a black, overwhelming structure with horn-like features attached to it. The system commends him, telling him that he has achieved a feat that defies common sense, and because of this, a new verse has been added to Kronos' myth. The system informs him that the building completion rate is high and the performance has increased by 50%. The system lets him know that inside the black obelisk, the field of vision for living creatures will be dampened. Just then, Yuma and the others are suddenly hit with a thick fog that impairs their vision. The system continues by telling Ryoga that undead stats have been increased by 30%, and Fafnir confirms this with the amount of power swelling inside him. Ryoga chuckles nervously because he managed to get it done, but just as he is about to start boasting, the blowback for straining himself hits him really hard. He coughs up dark blood, and before he knows it, he crashes to the ground and passes out. Fafnir rushes over in fear, calling out his master's name. Soon afterward, Ryoga wakes up in a tent with a banging head, and Kronos is the first he sees. Kronos teases him, telling him that he is surprised that he actually built the temple, while adding how funny it is that he built a temple of death using an obelisk, the symbol of life. Ryoga then steps out of the tent to stare at his handiwork, and he expresses his happiness that with what he did, he was able to defy logic. Ryoga can also sense that the connection between him and Kronos has taken form, and just then, Yuma and the others show up asking Ryoga if he is feeling better. Ryoga tells them that he is fine, saying he only pushed himself too hard, but Yuma lets him know that he is looking really pale. Ryoga doesn't want to believe this, and he just assumes that Yuma is overreacting. Yuma then moves away from the discussion, asking him when the fog is going to clear out because it is really hard for them to see. Ryoga figures out that the temple's effect is what is blocking their vision, and Ryoga quickly registers their information into the black obelisk. Basically, registered life forms will not be affected by the blind fog that surrounds the obelisk. Yuma and the others are surprised when they realize that they can finally see clearly, and they are blown away by how magnificent the obelisk is. The system informs Ryoga that the necromancy range has expanded, and the undead storage now has 100 slots. Basically, up until that moment, Ryoga could only keep Fafnir inside the ring of dark gloom. But from that moment forward, he would be able to store the others too. Ryoga also figures out that it is time for the team to strengthen their combat forces now that he has regained Kronos' power. Ryoga then turns to Yuma and the others, telling them that it is time for them to get stronger. The trio is shocked when they hear this, and Ryoga reminds them that they are a team, so they also have to get stronger, since it would be bad if the only thing they know how to do is collect mana stones forever. Ryoga then tells Fafnir that he will be in charge of training Yuma, and Fafnir asks Ryoga if he can take him through the same training process as him, but Ryoga lets him know that he is free to even intensify it. Yuma is taken aback by the realization that things are going the way he didn't envisage, but there is obviously nothing he can do about it. Ryoga then makes it known that he will be the one training Yuka and Hybara personally. After dishing out instructions, the team proceeds to act on them, and Fafnir takes Yuma to a spot where they can train in silence. Fafnir asks Yuma for his innate trait, and Yuma replies that the only skill he has is defense, while adding that there is a recoil after he blocks an attack. Fafnir then uses the martial god's eye analysis to check out what Yuma is saying. To his surprise, he finds out that what Yuma is suffering from is not recoil but repulsive force. Yuma is confused by this, and he asks Fafnir what he means by repulsive force. Fafnir explains to him that it is the force that pushes two objects away from each other, and he tells Yuma to hand over his shield for a moment. Fafnir stands before a tree, and he tells Yuma that what this means is that he can return any attack that he takes back at the enemy as a shockwave. Just then, Fafnir infuses the shield with mana, and he strikes the tree, ultimately shattering it with little to no effort. Yuma is blown away when he sees this, and he screams at Fafnir, asking him how he was able to get this done. Fafnir tells him that instead of just blocking with the shield, he should infuse it with mana as if he is slamming the shield down. Fafnir then returns the shield to him, telling him to give it a try. Yuma stands before a tree, and he puts all his focus into infusing the shield with mana before striking the tree. This delivers a massive force that shatters the tree and pushes him backwards too, but Fafnir is there to catch him. Fafnir then tells Yuma that he infused the shield with too much mana, urging him to infuse the shield with just enough mana to prevent his body from getting knocked back. Since he has shown Yuma what to do, he tells him to continue repeating what he has shown him. On the other side, Ryoga is stuck with Yuka and Hybara. He asks them what their skills are, and Yuka mentions that her main attack is with a crossbow and her trait is Resonance. Resonance is a trait that links an object to the user or a party member and causes it to resonate. Basically, mana flows from the linked person to the object, thus increasing its power. Kronos hears this, and he concludes that it is a useless skill. Even Yuka herself believes that her power is trash, but Ryoga tells her that it might look like this at first glance. But he lets her know that if she can use it properly, it is a pretty useful trait. Ryoga then hands her a skill book, telling her to use it, and Yuka is surprised that Ryoga is handing her something of such importance. Ryoga tells her that it is just a common skill called telekinesis, assuring Yuka that she is going to pay him back later, so she doesn't have to worry herself about how expensive it is. Yuka's excitement immediately dies when she hears that she will have to pay for it, but she proceeds to use the skill book nonetheless. Once she has installed the skill, Ryoga tells her to use resonance on her crossbow and then try moving it with telekinesis. Yuka does as told, and to her surprise, the feeling is much different than when she usually uses resonance. Ryoga lets her know that it is this way because the telekinesis skill is stacked on top of it, and since they are done with that, he tells her to try to aim the crossbow at the tree in the distance. Yuka fully commits to the act and she releases the bolt, which travels at incredible speed to deliver an overwhelming force. Haibara is stunned when he sees this, and Yuka asks Ryoga why the power of the bolt increased too. Ryoga explains that it is simply because she is infusing it with additional mana. With curiosity, she asks Ryoga where he learned how to do this, but little does she know that she was the one who managed to find out how the trash trait works before the regression. Ryoga then tells Yuka to continue practicing until she is out of mana. Since he is done with Yuka, he turns to Haibara to ask him for his trait. Haibara nervously replies that his skill allows him to create an inventory, but it is underwhelming because it can only hold about 1 kilogram. Haibara shows Ryoga his inventory space and Kronos laughs at him for being a trash baggage carrier. However, Ryoga disagrees, telling Kronos that Haibara will grow to become an overwhelming talent. Apparently, the number 2 of the House of Romanov, who possessed the same space ability, was able to keep all their weapons stored in their inventory, only to take them out to fight when needed. However, the problem is that expanding the inventory requires drinking an elixir, which is insanely expensive. Ryoga then tells Haibara that he is going to correct how he uses his mana from the ground up, so he should just leave the rest to him. After 2 weeks of intense training, the team faces off against angry boars, and tapping into the training they have received over the last couple of weeks, they are able to take down the monsters. The obelisk further absorbs the monsters' souls, as the necropolis functions both as a territory and a temple. Ryoga commends Yuka and Yuma for being able to take down an armored bear without Fafnir coming in to help, which basically means their training wasn't a waste. Thanks to the area being designated as their territory, Ryoga gets to level up too, and he finally hits level 50, which the system lets him know that he has broken through to a new realm. Ryoga also advanced to 2-star rank, gaining a 20% increase to all his stats. He is then informed that the experience required for future level-ups has quadrupled. Now that he has reached 2-star rank, Ryoga has unlocked the ability to create a wider variety of undead. His power is no longer limited to skeletons and zombies, so he can now raise more advanced undead, such as golems. After reviewing his upgrade, Ryoga calls out to Fafnir and tells him to be a good watchdog while he goes to check on Renya in the workshop. Fafnir is instantly infuriated by the remark, but Ryoga pays no attention to his complaints and orders him to watch over the necropolis. Before Ryoga can leave, Yuma asks him what the rest of the team is supposed to do while he's away. Ryoga asks about their current level, and Yuma says he's at level 48, while Yuka is at level 47 and Haibara is at level 45. He tells them to head to Furujuku to access the hidden area in the ancient garden. The gate is a medium-sized fixed type with a mana density of 52% and an entry requirement of 1 star. To enter the ancient trial grounds, Ryoga tells them to squeeze a drop of goblin shaman blood onto a frogman's heart. Once they access it, they're to defeat the Dragonian there to prove their strength. Yuma and the others are stunned to hear this, and as if that isn't already worse, Ryoga wants them to fight one-on-one without relying on each other. He reminds them that they definitely won't die if they lose the match, but the beating is still going to hurt like crazy. He then informs them that they can get a reward for clearing the trial and urges them to do their best. After hearing Ryoga's instructions, the trio exchanged meaningful glances with each other before deciding to take the gamble. As they prepare to head out, Yuma is worried that it might be too tough for Ryoga to handle the mana stones by himself, so he asks if Ryoga needs any help sorting them. Ryoga tells him not to worry, and with a mischievous grin, he says he has someone else in mind for the job. A few moments later, Shuri is excited when she receives a text from him, but the moment she sees that he's asking her to sort some mana stones, she almost loses it. Shuri can't believe his audacity as she wonders when her pub became a mana processing plant. Meanwhile, at the workshop, Renya is just minding his business with his work when Ryoga almost causes his spirit to flee from his body by suddenly creeping behind him. After flailing around for a while just to catch a test tube, Renya somehow finally grabs it without spilling a single drop. Ryoga sees no reason for him to be spooked, but Renya, still trembling, tells him not to suddenly pop out of nowhere like that again. Ryoga explains that Renya was so focused on his experiment that he didn't even notice when he came. He then asks about the progress of the mass-produced mid-grade potions, and Renya lets him know that everything has been proceeding smoothly without issues. He then points out that Ryoga seems to have dropped the formal speech when speaking to him. Ryoga explains he did it because they've gotten closer to each other. Renya says he doesn't care and urges Ryoga to use any form of speech that feels comfortable for him. Afterwards, Ryoga tells him to drop the experiments and follow him somewhere. Renya asks him what is happening, and Ryoga reveals that he's planning to make a golem. Renya is taken aback by this news, but his surprise immediately turns to excitement as he happily follows Ryoga out. Renya can't believe that they're about to make the legendary golem capable of moving semi-permanently as long as it has a mana source. Ryoga confirms that it is what he plans to make, but Renya remains skeptical because even major corporations are still struggling at the basic stage of golem research. Ryoga assures him that he can do it, but in exchange he needs Renya to do a lot of work. Without hesitation, Renya happily agrees to do anything, falling directly into Ryoga's plan to use him as a servant. Outside the workshop, he retrieves the corpse of the Kamenjan Death Guardian he defeated in the Forgotten Temple, which had been stored in the Ring of Dark Gloom. Renya is a bit disappointed when he sees the massive, grotesque thing they're supposed to use to make the golem. Due to the corpse's size, he points out that it would be better to just turn it into an undead, since normal golems are supposed to be made from stone or metal. Ryoga explains that he's creating a blood golem, which is halfway between an undead and a normal golem. Renya is surprised to hear this because he has never heard about a golem whose body is made from blood. Ryoga then tells him to start with the magic circuit engraving, which Renya immediately begins executing on the corpse using a magic thread. Engraving the magic circuits is the first stage of making a golem, and even though it is the most tedious, it is still the most important part of the process. After hours of engraving the circuits, Renya was exhausted, but still asked Ryoga for more assignments. With the help of the skeleton bodyguards, Ryoga brings out the Miss 4 engine he got as a reward from Shuri. The Miss 4 engine can generate its own mana, so implanting the core into the corpse's heart will naturally cause mana to flow, restarting the dead heart. Ryoga then forces the core into the corpse, telling Renya that the core is going to serve as the golem's heart. He orders Renya to connect circuits to the core, and Renya does as instructed, but he notices that the circuits seem to be burning. Ryoga tells him to look more closely to observe that they aren't burning, but are being integrated inside. Once the mana generated by the Miss 4 starts flowing through the corpse's magic circuits, the golem's foundation will be complete. Like a physics nerd, Renya is excited to listen to the lesson while watching the whole thing happen in real time. After making sure that the circuits are running properly, Ryoga announces that it's time to fix the golem's body. 3 days later, the 3-star blood golem was completed with combat power that varies depending on the absorbed blood. The golem also increases in size when it absorbs blood. With heavy dark circles and exhausted eye bags, Ryoga calls out to the blood golem, and it finally responds. Renya is utterly over the moon seeing the blood golem in action, but Ryoga isn't impressed because this is obviously not his first rodeo. Kronos suddenly appears, telling him that he has something for him. While Renya continues to fawn over the blood golem, Ryoga announces that he is going to the Pantheon. He tells Renya not to mess with the golem, while Kronos excitedly hurries him to head to the Pantheon. Soon afterwards, they arrive at the Pantheon, and Ryoga asks why Kronos was rushing to get him there. Kronos commends him for achieving feats that defy logic in such a short time. Since his divinity has greatly increased because of Ryoga, Kronos offers to grant him a new power. However, Ryoga isn't impressed that Kronos called him here just to brag, but Kronos decides to show him that it's more than bragging. A golden light erupts around Ryoga, and he is informed that a new spell has been added to his inventory. Once the spell is added, Kronos proudly boasts about his new spell and how powerful he is for coming up with the spell. Meanwhile, Ryoga is completely disgusted the moment he sets his eyes on the so-called spell's description. Ryoga was irritated by the new spell because it drained a target's vitality in exchange for increasing or restoring their physical strength, and he could not see the point of it. Ryoga demands to know what he is supposed to do with it when he mainly deals with the undead. Besides, creatures without vitality have nothing for the spell to drain, meaning it would fail miserably against them, so as far as he is concerned, the spell is completely useless to him. After studying it further, Ryoga concludes that the spell simply does not fit his style, and it is clearly designed for living humans. In his eyes, Kronos crafted a spell perfectly suited to his own fighting style as a giant while ignoring the fact that Ryoga is a necromancer. However, Kronos cannot understand how that makes it a failed spell, so he continues arguing that it works exactly as intended. But Ryoga lets him know that it is useless for a necromancer and he will never get the chance to use it. After making his point, Ryoga calls Kronos an incompetent constellation before turning and walking away. Infuriated, Kronos dares Ryoga to repeat himself, and Ryoga actually calls him an incompetent constellation louder and more clearly, enraging the old dude. Later on his way back, Ryoga receives a call from Shuri, informing him of a lucrative job unrelated to the Red Spider organization. Ryoga is about to argue that, as a saint, he doesn't do anything for chump change, but he immediately swallows his words when Shuri tells him that the reward is a humanoid ginseng worth over 100 million. She explains that the request will require Ryoga's healing abilities and asks whether he would be willing to take it on. The job comes from the Citan Company, a powerful corporation renowned for its influence in monostone research and utilization. Apparently, the chairman's youngest daughter has been afflicted with mummy disease, and despite trying every available treatment, no cure has been found. Now, with all their options having failed, they are seeking Ryoga's help as a last resort. Moments later, Ryoga arrives at the chairman's house with Shuri and Renya. Ryoga asks Shuri again to be sure that he will be getting the promised humanoid ginseng as a reward for curing the disease. This humanoid ginseng is very expensive and highly sought after because it is a high-grade elixir with the highest yin energy. Shuri reassures Ryoga that he will get the promised reward, but she asks if he can really heal the mummy disease. Ryoga confidently answers that he can, because even though it is incurable in the current timeline, things are different for him, who is living a second life. Right now, everyone thinks the mummy disease has no known cause, but Ryoga knows that it is caused by mana poisoning that causes the body to collapse after prolonged exposure to high-density mana. Ryoga is confident because once the cause is known, the treatment for the disease is pretty simple. Meanwhile, Renya is awestruck because this is his first time in the world of the rich. Just then, Shuri realizes that she has not properly greeted him, so she reaches out to speak to him first. Like a fan who just met his idol, Renya replies shyly while Shuri continues to praise him for his talent in potion development and alchemy. Renya awkwardly tries to appear humble, but Ryoga can tell he's absolutely over the moon from Shuri's praise. Ryoga's expression immediately changes when he senses someone entering the room. Right then, Fumiteru Hoshino, the chairman of Seitan Company, walks in, adjusting his white glove marked with a magic circle. The pressure from his terrifying aura almost crushes Renya on the spot. He had heard that Hoshino was a 7-star mage, but seeing him now, his aura is absolutely on another whole level. Renya admits that a strength like this is not something a rat like himself can even begin to fathom. As he takes his seat, Hoshino and Shuri exchange greetings, but Hoshino tells her not to be too formal with him. Shuri tells him to put aside their personal talk and dive straight into business. Looking at Ryoga and Renya, he asks if they're the ones accepting the request. Ryoga and Renya then introduce themselves properly, after which Hoshino straight up tells them that he doesn't trust them. He explains that it's because countless others have approached him claiming they could cure his daughter, but in the end, they were all just capping. Ryoga confidently tells Hoshino that he is different from the others. Hoshino, however, sternly warns him that he can no longer bear to see his daughter suffer and asks once more whether Ryoga can truly cure her. Realizing that words alone will not be enough to convince him, Ryoga simply replies that Hoshino will have to trust him. After quietly considering it, Hoshino decides to trust him, but from his trembling hands, Ryoga can tell that the poor man is just grasping at straws, hoping to save his daughter. Hoshino then warns Ryoga that if he fails to cure the disease, he should be prepared to lose his life. Ryoga remains completely unfazed by the threat, but Renya is utterly terrified. Knowing they stand no chance against a 7-star, he immediately begins wondering where he can find a decent burial plot for himself. A few moments later, Hoshino leads them to his daughter's room, where several magic circles have been placed around to facilitate her recovery. Ryoga tells him to remove all the magic circles, and when Hoshino demands to know why, he explains that the mummy disease is an illness where mana stimulates and contracts the muscles. According to Ryoga, it might seem like a good thing to restore her vitality with magic circles, but this remedy also stimulates the cause of the disease, making it completely useless for treatment. Hoshino considers it for a second before withdrawing all the magic circles. The moment the circles are withdrawn, his daughter, Sarah, immediately regains consciousness and weakly calls on her father. Hoshino rushes to Sarah's side, looking very worried, and as he gently holds her hand, Sarah asks him about the people in her room. Hoshino simply lets her know that they're the ones who are going to heal her, so he tells her to hold on a little longer. After letting the father and daughter have their moment, Ryoga announces that it is time to begin the process. He tells Renya to handle the transmutation magic circle and place the mana stones. Renya firmly accepts and immediately begins putting the stones in place. Ryoga then places his hand on Sarah's forehead and calls her name. Immediately, Sarah begins to react to the ritual.